This is going to be an X space on American democracy as a proof of stake. SH hyphen T coin and Bitcoin, how Bitcoin fixes this. So we're going to break it down with the speakers panel and go through these elements about proof of stake. You know, is a bad coin, crap coin, and Bitcoin fixes this through proof of work, through a public ledger, and we're going to break down the elements. I got some guys coming in that are going to be new guy that I met. Speaking of American democracy, I'll do a quick little introduction on that. We had the election coming up this week with the American democracy side of things, and the Republicans are in control of the House, the White House, as well as right now there are 216 seats in the House. So if they get 2 more seats, then they'll have full control of the House. So it's definitely not over yet. Until the House is secured by the Republicans, they don't necessarily have control to do much. So if you want change, if that's if you believe that things got to change, well, then they would need to have control of the House, to have all 3 branches of the government, to then pass bills like ending the Federal Reserve or ending the IRS or ending these 498 bureaucratic agencies, let's say cutting them down to like 99 agencies like Elon Musk suggested, where we just cut these agencies down, or taking all the companies, the agencies out of Washington, D.C. and putting them throughout America. So letting Americans take the jobs as opposed to these swamp, the people in the swamp down there. So these are all things that could happen if if Congress does get secured by the Republicans. And of course you got Trump in the White House, and the cabinets aren't all infiltrated with deep staters and who knows whoever else. So we'll see. But it's definitely changes on the horizon, that's for sure. But that being said, it's still not fixed because we got this proof of stake crap. Then we really don't have accountability, and that's why we need Bitcoin and the original Bitcoin protocol. So let's get started here in a moment. I'll pause it and we'll start up. We'll see you on the inside at the top. Dude, all right. What's up, y'all? Okay, this is Gavin Gregory. We're going to do the X Space today. Last night I was watching the American politics, following it this week, and we have this, the presidential election where you've got 3 branches of government with the White House, and of course the Republicans took the White House now, and they also took the Senate, but what they haven't taken yet is the House. And so, in order to have a trifecta, they have to actually have all 3 branches of government to actually make change. Otherwise, you're in a quagmire of, legislation, nothing really getting done, and everything gets blocked by all the Democrat side in one of the branches in the House, let's say. So anyway, there's 2 seats left. So that's just the update on that, the American politics side. If they do get those last 2 seats, then, there will probably be a lot of changes and happening. It's going to be a huge change, I would imagine. At least from what we've read that the president-elect is promising to do. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's one of the topics of the space last night is I'm following John Harold, and he's the author of the devolution theory, which is a fantastic theory. If you guys haven't looked into it, and I don't know if that's YouTube friendly or not, so I'm not going to go too into it. But it's a phenomenal body of research that he's done. I think he goes by the name Patel Patriot, and so on X, and so he has a Substack and all sorts of research that he's done on all the laws. It's just a phenomenal body of work, and I followed him since the beginning when he published that paper. I think it was 2020 or 2020 or 2021. So, anyways, that's how I found G Money, and he was on his media channel last night and had an interesting subject matter of proof of stake shit coins, and how American democracies are proof of stake shit coins, and Bitcoin is proof of work, and Bitcoin fixes everything. And I couldn't agree more. Having Bitcoin as a ledger to back everything up and make transparency, because I think people who aren't too sure about what Bitcoin really is it's just all Bitcoin is the original public ledger. It's like, I mean, it's more than that, but in simple terms, it's the original public ledger, and it makes everything open, honest, and transparent so we can audit everything, and it puts it out there. So we always have that backed up ledger. We've got that one public ledger built on the proof of work SHA-256 mining protocol, where the miners are validating the transactions. And so it's open and honest and trustless, peer to peer. And so that ledger is incredibly special, and it does fix these things if we could have it implemented on like voting systems or whatnot. So anyways, what's up, dude? Let's open up the stage and Casey, go ahead. How you doing? Good morning.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for having us, Gavin. Welcome,
Definitely.
G-Money.
G-Money, I want to hear. So, and I'm going to, and Casey has some exciting announcements we're going to talk about too, that she heard about. We'll go through that a little bit later on, though. So stay tuned to the end about it. It's going to be freaking huge. Some major announcements that she's just gotten information on. So, we haven't heard from, before I go to you, G-Money, let me just say what's up to Scott and Satoshi, and then I want to get an introduction from you since it's the first time you and I have talked. So Scott, 369 BSV, what's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Gavin? You good?
Oh, I'm never better, man. I can't thank you enough for the last week. Those shows we did were freaking awesome, man. I mean, people loved them. Like 3,000 plus, 4,000 people. I mean, with those two shows, I think we had like 6,000 people watching them. So that was awesome. Thank you.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this space as well. It's good to talk about voting and Bitcoin. You're going to be excited about
what Casey has to share regarding the new announcements. So it's just out.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear.
Yes, for sure. All right, Satoshi, man, how you doing? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, mate. I'm good. It's it's kind of like late afternoon here, like about just after 5 o'clock. But yeah, massively chuffed to bits that Trump won the election, mate. And then he's already talking about dismantling the deep state. Whew.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an exciting time, and like I said, it's still not over. So don't everyone just celebrate, because again, without the House, he doesn't have the power that he wants. So he needs that House, and they're still counting ballots. They're still doing that right now, and there's two seats to go before they have control of the House. And
that might be so, but even just to get voted in, I mean, imagine the amount of skullduggery that went on behind the scenes. With all those like postal ballots last time and stuff. And so all that shit still went on, and he still got the majority vote. So even winning that was massive.
It really is massive. I mean, it's an incredible feat, and it looks like they, on the steel, they were trying, we know that the elections are really screwed up. So they were planning on, what they did was they released a bunch of passwords on the Dominion software in 3 of the states, I think Colorado, Utah, Arizona. These 3 Secretary of States at the same time all released these passwords out on the internet, all at the same time. Oops, here they are, all at the same time. And then nobody supposedly came in and grabbed them and did anything. And the theory is that they were supposed to be probably picked up by foreign, let's say China, and they didn't grab them all of a sudden. Now, all of a sudden, China's friends with Trump. So some deals are happening in the background at super high levels that we're just learning about. It looks like, or speculating on, I guess. So, dude. So what's up? All right. So can I go over to G-Money, Satoshi? Anything else before we get started?
No, mate. Yeah. Go ahead. Rock and roll, mate.
I want to hear
Looking forward to it.
So now G-Money is, he's, like I said, he's one of, I heard about it. I learned about him from Revolution Radio. I'm sorry, no, Patel Patriot, which John Harold's research. What's up, man? How you doing?
Yo, what up, guys? Thanks for having me, Gavin, Casey, Satoshi, and the crew. Good to meet you guys, and good to kind of chop it up. And thanks for that intro with John, Patel Patriot. So his research is based upon devolution, a continuity of government executive order that Trump put out before they stole the election in 2020, that basically kind of decentralizes command and control operations to certain military functions. Okay. And so why that's important is because that's kind of like the open source proof of the Q operation. Okay. So many of you guys have maybe heard of QAnon, Q, right? The mainstream media tried to do whatever they could to debunk it. However, within those drops, there's like mathematical proofs, right? And so I think a lot of Bitcoiners, a lot of crypto guys are like mathematical maxis. And so if you were to go back through like the 4,500 plus posts, there's a lot of disinformation, but there's also mathematical proofs built into a lot of those drops that are not coincidences. And you have, thousands of these that are on top of each other to where it's like, the same type of odds as like guessing a private key. Okay. And so, that movement, the Q movement, I've always been, kind of part of this, but look, you can't just arrest everybody and, bring in this new form of government and, make everything puppy dogs and rainbows without fixing the money, right? You can't have this plan to arrest people if you're not going to, at the end of the day, replace the foundation of human interaction, which is the monetary layer. And so that's kind of where I come in, because I've always taken the angle of, look, you can't fix the system unless you fix the money. And so I believe Bitcoin is a huge part of the Q operation in a compartmentalized approach to not only decentralize media, decentralize messaging, decentralize a lot of that stuff, but also to bring in a new foundation for a new monetary system that allows all of us to not only live in abundance, but also live in peace, live in freedom, and live in sovereignty. So.
Brilliant. Well said. Good speaker. So I appreciate that. So John from his research, or are you guys old buddies, or how did you guys meet?
Yeah. So I was part of an old group called We the Media. I was part of an old group of Anons back in like 2017, where like 15 of us, we'd get like 1 billion hits over a month on Twitter, right? When it was called Twitter. Our research based upon the Q drops, we were just researching, questions that were asked in the post. It was kind of like the Socratic method, where this anonymous person would ask questions. We'd go out and research it, and we'd find, the Epstein Island connections, the pedophile signs within some of the Hollywood people. And we would just post the information, and the stuff would go viral. And then a lot of us got kicked off in 2020 after January 6th. We were all removed. And then John kind of got introduced to us through some mutual Anons. We all went to Telegram. And then John started a media company called Badlands Media. That's on Rumble primarily. So if you guys are looking for the content, if you go to rumble.com, the YouTube equivalent that's got free speech kind of at the forefront, John has I'm part of a media company called Badlands Media. And in that media company, we're kind of like the Alex Jones of Fox News, right? Like, we're more of the conspiracy American type of programs. And so my show is called Rug Pull Radio, where I only hit really kind of the monetary crypto side of everything, and that kind of blends in the Q drops and blends in Trump and blends in all these different things, to where we believe that the Great Awakening is actually a replacement of the monetary system that is happening worldwide, and it's happening with the countries that need it the most, right? It's happening with countries that have the worst inflation. It's happening with countries that are the poorest, that are onboarding this technology. And then finally, 15 years later, America finally gets to onboard it. And you see Trump coming in as a big Bitcoin guy. And a lot of my research actually foretold Trump of being a Bitcoin maxi from years ago. And so that's kind of how I fit into the mix. And that's kind of how I found John. And so now I'm just part of his media company, and there's other shows on there as well. There's a Q show. So if some people are new to Q, there's a show called Eye of the Storm, where they literally every week go through all these old drops, so you can get familiar with what happened from like 2017 to 2020 with all of that information that came out during that time. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. So that's, yeah, it is. I think a lot of people are probably pretty new to it, because, it was so said it was all BS, right, to the mainstream news. So, a lot of people probably haven't even looked into it, but it seems like the connection was made with Patel Patriot. Was like he made all he did the devolution connection, right? I guess he did all the research on the laws and made those connections, and now it's coming out to where it looks like it is actually true and correct.
Yeah, I mean, look, the executive orders Trump signed are all open source, right? You can go look at the executive orders and look down deep. I think it's Executive Order 13961. That is the devolution executive order that talks about continuity of government. And so when looking at the Q drops, right, the Q drops were kind of saying there was this military operation happening behind the scenes that was basically, getting rid of bad actors, exposing corruption, and talking about how this new monetary system would play out. And you see things kind of like in the shadows that kind of happen. Like we see what happened with El Salvador, to where like, that country was completely overran with MS-13. And then like, all of a sudden they just arrested like 80,000, gang members and like took them to jail. And like, that's kind of a big leap to just be like, wow, this guy just, adopted Bitcoin and then like just arrested all these people. Like that doesn't really happen in a vacuum. That happens with major support in some levels of, possibly military type operations. And so, we believe there is this underlying like kind of bumpers for humanity to help kind of herd the sheep, off of fiat and into this new kind of foundation that we're all kind of like experiencing now. And as Americans, like, we're kind of arrogant to the fact that, we have the reserve currency. And so it's a little bit easier for us, but I think a lot of us are still confused by it. And, we're just trying to put the pieces together and game this out. None of us think we know everything. We're just trying to offer open source intelligence for the common people, for them to, look at it and make their own decision.
So what's your Bitcoin story?
So my Bitcoin story started back in 2016. I got rug pulled, funny enough, on my first transaction, trying to buy rare whiskey online, where a guy only accepted Bitcoin as payment. I got rug pulled. I didn't get my whiskey, but I was like, oh, this guy wants Bitcoin. That's weird. Okay. And I was a big Ron Paul guy. I've always been a huge Ron Paul in the Fed. Okay. So that's been like my caveat. I used to stack gold, and I'm a technology guy. And so I started looking into it. I bought every shitcoin that, was available out there. And then I got rug pulled in, 2017. And then it's like, oh, I probably should do some more research, and like started looking and going down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. And those kind of worlds kind of blended when I was in Las Vegas and I got shot at, and my buddy took a round through the leg, and I knew what was happening on the mainstream media was complete lies. So I searched everywhere up and down to figure out like what the fuck happened in Vegas, because I knew everything they were saying on TV was bullshit. And so I kind of have a unique story, because I was into Bitcoin kind of first, and then like, that shooting thing happened, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, okay. And I ran across these Q drops probably like a month after that shooting happened. And so I was always kind of like, well, like these drops like make a lot of sense and it sounds really good, but like, I always knew the foundation was the money. Like you can arrest all these people. It sounds really good, but like, if you don't fix the money, like, what are you really going to actually do? And then, I was like, well, like there's this Bitcoin thing that seems kind of interesting. So these two kind of like, I guess, since they're both like anonymous people, could maybe be connected somehow. Right. And then I started doing more research about, how this all kind of plays into, where we're at today. I wrote a research paper called the Covfefe dig. And this dig is actually probably the single biggest proof that we have that all of this is connected. So I can literally almost prove on chain that Q, Bitcoin, Trump, Pepe the Frog, funny enough, Pepe the Frog are all connected in this intertwined kind of messaging game theory. And so it's unique. And it's all open source. And so like, I'll post it if people want to check it out, but I always encourage people to do their own research and don't take anybody's word for it. And like, let the data tell the story. And so that's kind of how I got involved in Bitcoin. And then I started like teaching people about it. It was my passion. And then, look, I'm a psychopathic Bitcoiner now, right? Like I didn't like actually like start my journey to end here. It was just people weren't saying what I felt needed to be said. And so I started a Telegram channel. I started a radio show, and like, I just felt like my message needed to be said. And so here I am.
Dude. So, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, this is, I'm sure people are chomping at the bit wanting to chime in, but I want to keep this. Okay. So you started Bitcoin. I mean, you got into it. You were at the shooting in 2016. You got the shit coins in 2017. You started doing the research. There's a shooting. Where was this shooting? Vegas? And what year? 2018?
Yeah, Las Vegas, 2017. Jason Aldean. You guys probably heard about it. 58 people died. There was that guy in the Vegas tower where he was like shooting out of his hotel room, which was kind of bullshit. I think we were actually being shot at from helicopters. There's a gentleman by the name of I Am John Cullen that has the most fascinating, probably truthful research that has ever been done on this topic. And so if you're not familiar with him, I'd recommend to at least, if you're interested in it, people don't care by now. It's 7 years, 8 years later. But yeah, that's kind of, I was there. People died, right? Like that was not a psyop. That was not fake. That was real bullets. and people dying. So, you know, people like to say some of it's a psyop. You know, I think there is, but you know, that's kind of where it started.
Okay, so that's sending you on a mission, and you realize that now it's like they could fix some of the system, but without fixing the money. It's just a Band-Aid. Is that what?
Yeah, well, it's like a LARP, right? It's like, oh, this sounds really cool, bro. But like, you know, you talk about what happened back in Russia, right? Where they kind of like coalesced the population to like not do anything, and they just kind of took over, right? And so Operation Trust, I think is what they call it, right? The Bolsheviks and everything. And so I believe this is a kind of a different operation. And at the end of the day, you know, Bitcoin is a weapon. And so like, I didn't have all these pieces until this gentleman named Jason Laurie kind of came along. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he's part of the Space Force and wrote a 400-page thesis on Bitcoin as an actual weapon. And so what I don't really talk about Bitcoin as like money. I talk about Bitcoin as a energy-driven, authority-led, decentralized ledger, okay, that is scalable governance for the entire world. So like, I don't even like to talk about it as like coins or money or that type of thing. Like, this is literally power back to the people in the most like effective way possible, to where they don't have to start shooting each other, right? Like if Trump doesn't get into office, by the way, Trump actually isn't in office. For those that don't know, in America, when we go vote for the president, we're actually voting for electors. So who won on you know, November 5th was actually 538 electors, which are like people with superpowers that then have to go vote, place their electoral votes according to how the popular vote went or whatever, right? They're supposed to have to then vote for Trump. And that has to happen by December 17th. So really, like, nobody's gotten elected yet. Nobody's been sworn into office. Trump is technically the winner, right? But like, until these other different mechanisms happen within our government, Trump is still not president. Okay. And so I think we need to, and that's really what I went over last night in my show, is explaining like, hey, you guys elected like 538 electors, and there's no constitutional like law that says they actually have to follow through and vote for Trump. Right. And so what does that mean? Well, I don't know. What if they arrest these people? Right. Like, they've literally tried to kill Trump. They've arrested him 3 times, and now they're just going to like let him back into office. Look, I hope that's the case, but I do not like, I am not, my guard is not down, like you said before, right? Like, we are not in any way, shape, or form about to just be like, oh, everything's honky-dory, like, let's go celebrate. No, we need to be on these people, and we need to make sure there are no shenanigans that happen in the background to make sure this transition is smooth.
Definitely. So on the back to the this is brilliant. So back to the Bitcoin subject, I want to bring up Satoshi if I can. He, you know, just to kind of give you you made some really good points about how it's not money. This is like decentralized ledger, and it actually, there's like these 5 elements to it, and Satoshi is the one that really, I think, you know, is the brain behind like explaining this best. So Satoshi, do you want to talk a little bit about your theory about not a theory, about the digital commodity side of Bitcoin?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like what I'm desperate to get out to everyone. You guys have probably heard this before. G Money, just in case you haven't, a great speech there, by the way. There are only 4 things that circulate within an economy. You've got goods that are manufactured, services that are provided, commodities that are only ever extracted or grown, so there's no human barrier to entry, hence they're common to everyone. And then you have securities, which are one step removed from the item itself, so they secure your entitlement to it, whatever that might be. So a token entitles you to entry to an arcade, a ticket entitles you to entry to a concert, a gift voucher entitles you to buy something on Amazon, vouchers, land deeds, share certificates. They secure your entitlement to it. That's it. So you only need a money when a common medium of exchange with common value, when a third person comes into trade and an economy is created, because between the two of you, you can just barter, top for a jumper, or, jeans for tracky bottoms, whatever like that. When a third person comes into trade, you need a common medium of exchange so that you can then start exchanging goods within an economy. Now, the word commodity is actually like an amalgamation of 3 words. It's first of all something that's common, that's then been itemized and then identified. So if you look at the word commodity, you can see common, and then IT, item, and then DITY, identify. So, oil is barreled, water is bottled, coffee is bagged, all that kind of stuff. So when you're looking for a common medium of exchange, it can only ever be extracted or grown, because goods are manufactured by a centralized party, services are provided so they can't be transported, and securities are issued. So again, issued by a higher authority that will back up your claim on that, whatever it is that secured your entitlement to. So, so when it comes to a digital commodity, that in order for a digital token to be classified as a commodity, then it has to be extracted from a commoditized digital network. And when you have a commoditized digital network, it means that that network has no central point of authority or control, or failure, which means effectively you have sovereignty over your own data. And in order for this network to not have any central point of authority or control, the only way a network like that can operate is if you have an asset that economically sustains it. And therefore, that asset has to have all the elements of commoditization, one of them being fixed in supply, so that it can't be inflated or deflated by a central authority. But effectively, a commodity needs, well, for want of a better word, it needs to be effectively infinitely divisible, so that it can be divided amongst everybody in the economy. Now, in order to give data value, then the value would actually have to come from the use of the network that the token came from. So you access the network by buying the token. That's where the demand comes from. So the five elements that just Gavin was touching on there, the first two are structural. So first of all, in order for there not to be any central point of failure, the network needs to be distributed, and each of those components have to be economically competitive to one another, so that they are not reliant at all. So again, if without competition, you simply get collusion and centralization. So that's where sort of proof of work comes in. And then after that, if there is any sort of criminal activity taking place on the network, accountability has to lie somewhere. So if there is still criminal activity taking place on a network that is globally distributed and economically competitive, well, accountability ultimately still lies with all those operations. Even though those operations are independent and economically competitive, they are all accountable for a criminal activity going on the network. So you have to move accountability and responsibility onto the users of the network. And the way you do that is through a chain of digital signatures. So if you just simply have a digital signature proving that two people have transacted, and there's no way of tracing it at all, so there's no accountability, well, that's not good enough. That's where it still lies with those who are sustaining the operations. However, a chain of digital signatures means that there is a starting point, so someone started it, and then you can trace the chain of digital signatures, which effectively creates the structure of a private association. So it's the users of the network who are accountable to one another as to how it is used. Because if there is nefarious activities like child trafficking, gun running, warmongering, whatever going on that digital network, it's the users of the network who are responsible and accountable for stamping it out. And you know everyone through that chain of digital signatures. So that's the basic structure: economic competition and a chain of digital signatures. And then the dynamics of it are just simply, you need unbounded scale so that limitations and restrictions can't be manufactured and the network not be manipulated. A fixed token supply, as I said, so it again can't be manipulated. And then just all those elements just have to be locked so that they can never change. That's why Satoshi said, the protocol is locked in, is set in stone. Because literally what I've described there is the only way that you can create a commoditized network. But because someone can still create it, all you need are those elements. What you can't replicate is the neutral size and growth of the network. And this was kind of like, the genius of Satoshi, like Craig, when he was thinking about this. Because first of all, the main thing is you need a common starting point. That's where all these shitcoins fail. So the way you add commonality to the starting point is by providing a common, equal, and reasonable opportunity for anyone and everyone to start the network, which is why the white paper was released on the 31st of October, 2 months, which is a reasonable amount of time passed. And then he started the network under a pseudonym. in order to let the network grow without any central point of influence, so that the growth of the network can be classified as a commodity, a common network, because there's no central point of influence over its neutral organic growth, which otherwise would discredit the token's classification as a commodity if there was a central starting point that had influence over the network. So yeah, hope that kind of explained it.
Five elements just to recap. Then I'm going to go back to G Money and see if he has any comments. Economically competitive, the unbounded scale, fixed token supply, locked protocol, neutral size and growth. Creating a common and reasonable opportunity. So over to you, G Money. I mean, have you ever heard anything like that before?
Yeah, I mean that's a lot to take in about what all that means and stuff. I kind of take a more like bigger approach to things. I'm keep it in like kind of the simple realm, to where like I analyze important dates like the Satoshi white paper, and then I compare them to like some of the Q drops. Okay, and so some important events that happen on 1031, right? We get the Satoshi white paper, and then in the Q drop, there's actually a drop on 1031 that says, "Are you ready to finish what we started?" And it says, "Nothing can stop what is coming" is not just a catchphrase. Okay, and so what did you guys start, right? We anticipate that Q, right, is actually the highest form of clearance in the Department of Energy, right, which is like nuclear codes, Tesla energy, right, all that good stuff. And so, what is nothing that you can stop, right? Well, you can't stop the sun from coming up, and you probably can't stop the next Bitcoin block from being mined. Okay, and so when you kind of keep going with these, 1031, you get this other interesting protocol called Counterparty. Okay, and so Counterparty is a layer 2 scalable solution for Bitcoin, to where it was released on January 13th. Okay, so January 13th is another 113, and what happened was, this protocol was kind of like this immaculate conception, to where people would send their Bitcoin to this burn address, okay, and they were rewarded with this token called XCP. Okay, now XCP is just kind of like any other shitcoin. However, the only way to get this was to actually burn your Bitcoin, meaning that there was no ICO, right? There was no central kind of person that allowed people to actually produce this coin. The only way you got it is when you sent it to a burn address. Now, those that are familiar with the thermodynamics of Bitcoin, right? Understanding the property, the first law of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created or destroyed. What we have is an energy transformation. And so what that means is that the burned Bitcoin isn't actually burned, right? The Bitcoin is still on the ledger. Anybody can go look at it. But this energy form has then transformed into a scalable tokenization protocol that is on the layer 1 Bitcoin blockchain. Okay, and so what I think that means is that is how you scale Bitcoin to over 8 billion people across the entire planet. Okay, and I truly believe Satoshi will come back and possibly burn those Bitcoin to that other burn address to provably give the energy transformation of understanding, like, this is literally how you scale. Because look, you can't scale Bitcoin to 8 billion people. Okay, I'm very aware of that fact. But you can do it through tokenization, and tokenization of everything is actually probably a good thing through our equity markets. We all know Wall Street is completely rigged. Funny enough, there is a Q drop on January 13th that says SEC test. And funny enough, the test token that was created on layer 2 was called test, was generated on January 13th. And you had this Q drop that said SEC test on January 13th. Now, those are familiar with SEC, some say it could have meant security. Some think it maybe meant the Securities Exchange Commission, okay? Funny enough, there's also a drop on January 13th that talks about Charles Ponzi. For those that aren't familiar with Charles Ponzi, his company was also called the SEC. It was called the Security Exchange Company, right? So the SEC is literally just the same initials as the Ponzi scheme of the Security Exchange Company. Now is the Securities Exchange Commission, to where tokenization of equities will actually expose naked shorts. It will actually expose the GameStop fiasco. It will actually give legal ownership to people to own equities, because right now the DTCC, right, the Treasury Clearinghouse or whatever they call it, is the only person or the only entity that actually has full legal custody of everybody's equities. Okay, there's a gentleman by the name of Patrick Byrne, who you guys may be familiar with, who is the Overstock CEO. Okay.
Yeah.
He spent $30 million to prove that 75% of Wall Street's income comes from securities lending. Okay, it's this really gray area protocol that nobody ever heard of. And so like, it was like 5 to 8 years ago, he spent 30 million taking Goldman Sachs to court to expose the fact that, this practice of lending securities is like a Ponzi. So what happens is these naked short sellers will go locate a stock and then they'll lend it out like 10 times over. Meaning, that's why you got GameStop that was over leveraged with naked shorts, is because the same person that had legal custody of it lent it out, 10 to 50 different times. So you had all these shorts build up on only one asset to where nobody could track it. And so where I'm kind of getting with this is that Patrick Byrne was actually, he actually launched his ICO on this counterparty protocol. Okay, and this counterparty protocol is also unique because if you go back and look at some of the tokens that were created, there is this token called the Games of Trump card. Okay, the Games of Trump card is a Bitcoin NFT that has Trump on a dragon. It's like a little like card that says it has 17s on it. So if you look at the card, there's 17 health for 17 for health, 17 for sword. And then if you look at the issuance, it's actually 1717. 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. Q referenced many times to where referencing 17 meant like Q was kind of behind it or whatever. And so this interesting NFT was actually put out 2 months before Q ever dropped anything. Okay, so if you want to talk about like open source proofs, I can prove like literally on the Bitcoin blockchain that this particular token is mathematically impossible thinking about what's happening now, because you have Trump on a dragon. We have Trump in the year of the dragon coming out to Bitcoin Nashville. We have all these different events now that are kind of cascading. And I believe it's one of the biggest, most important things that many Bitcoiners are missing, and that should be looked into further. And that's why I'm trying to, like, you guys are all journalists. You guys are all open source guys. Like, I want people to look at it and be like, this is why you're wrong, right? This is why we think you're wrong. Because I want to understand it from other angles as well. And so that's kind of my proof of like why I think this is the future.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of people are wanting to say this is why you're wrong. So I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. I would love to get Craig Mason up here. If he, I see he's in the audience, man. This is like right up your alley, Craig, if you're able to come up. And I invited Alex as well, Alex Favell. So, but yeah, we requested here. Who's that? Satoshi, back up. Nice. Yeah. So go ahead. Any comments, Scott? I mean, are you or any, Casey? He's asking for feedback on it. I'd love to hear.
Well, by the way, I posted this. I posted the links to all of this stuff in your original tweet, Gavin. So if anybody wants to go look at it, like all of it's right there. I put it.
Oh yeah, thank you. And Casey, if you could put that in the nest, if you're able to see what he posted, it's kind of tricky to find. She knows where to find it. Cool. Oh, Craig Mason, you're up. What's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, what's up, Gavin? Hello, everybody.
Good to see you, man. Have you had a chance to listen into G Money at all with what he was? Did you hear what he was saying?
Yeah, I heard the last 15 minutes or so. I definitely have known G Money from before this. It's interesting that he says he wants to hear why he's wrong, because when I've tried to point out why he's wrong in the past, he got, let's just say he didn't really like what I had to say. And I think that he does bring up a lot of interesting points. I didn't know about the dragon card on XCP or whatever it is. And that is a lot of coincidences with 17 and being on a dragon. There's a lot of dragon references some may know in BSV. There's the dragon logo. I can see on at least one person's profile picture. There's the color. Does anybody know the color of that logo, the gold Bitcoin logo? It was originally called Dragon Gold is the name of the color. And also there's Q post that references, you've seen this meme. I'll dig it up and post it somewhere. But it's a post from Q that links to an NSA post that says follow the dragon and has a logo of a dragon that looks just like a red logo, or it looks just like the 8chan logo. And also, if you flip it, it looks like the BSV logo. So there's a lot of dragon references. I think Q and Trump and Craig Wright are very closely tied together. There's tons of things that all go together. I don't know how BTC fits into it. I know G Money's a big BTC proponent, because obviously Trump is out talking about BTC when he references Bitcoin, or at least that's how most people perceive it. But I think they're all tied together, And you also mentioned January 13, I think it was, post that says nothing can stop what is coming, tying that back to Bitcoin. Or you could abbreviate that NCSWIC, as it often is abbreviated, or nothing CSW is coming. That is Craig Stephen Wright is CSW. So
power rules everything. And this is force. This is force power. So if I were to attack Bitcoin, like all the power in the world could not put a dent into the hash rate of the network to overtake or change the ledger, right? And so like the hash rate of other networks being so much smaller, that is something to where they could eventually attack and successfully, right, fork or overtake that network because of the small hash rate. So I don't like to get into kind of all the semantics about the technicalities about look, HBO didn't even prove Craig Wright was Satoshi, right? So I don't want to, and again, I don't want to make fun of you guys. I'm not here to troll. I'm here to just say, look, power rules all. Bitcoin is 1,000 times plus more powerful than any other network on the planet that cannot be fucked with. And so that's kind of where I stand. I'm going to be on the team that's got the strongest military, and good luck to everybody else.
Right. No, it's well said. That's well taken. Well said. I mean, and network.
That wasn't.
Go ahead, Craig or Satoshi. Go ahead. No,
that wasn't well said at all.
Well, the network. I think that you have a response. I mean, I understand the power takes call, but go ahead and respond before I.
Well, G Money's saying, look, I look at this simply. Well, when they created the alternative SegWit protocol, the miners had to change their algorithm, and they also had to implement replay protection, which shows they created an alternative protocol. Plus the fact when you break the signatures on the chain, there's no, all accountability is lost. So you centralize it, and those who have control of the network have control of the signatures. And you just follow, if you really want to boil it down, you basically just look at the protocol that still carries the number1 legacy address. So and all that, the miners just simply chase profit. They have no political they have no political desires in this, because their motives are purely economic. So all Blockstream had to do, which are the deep state, was collude with the exchanges to list their new alternative protocol as BTC, and the miners just simply follow it. It honestly, it's not rocket science what they've done. It's hilarious if you can't figure it out.
Look, I want you guys all on my team. I honestly do. I think you all are good people. I think you all are fighting the good fight. I just don't think you guys have read software yet. To be honest with you, it is probably the most important document that has ever been written since the Satoshi white paper. Okay, when it talks about Bitcoin as a weapon system, as a global energy-backed authority governance system.
Hold on, mute, John.
Yeah.
Mute John for a second. Let him finish, and then we'll go to you, John. Hang on.
And so no, I honestly would really behoove all of you to actually go and read that book. It's 400 pages long. It's not an easy read. Okay, but this is where power and power projection and the domestication of the human species comes into play. And this is a very big part of what I think we're actually experiencing, right? We're in a proof of stake network to where we give a small group of people the ability to make changes and make decisions for all of us, okay, because it's easy, right? We hand our power over to these electors, to these politicians that don't have our best interest in mind. And what happens is we give 1,000 people in America the consensus mechanism to make changes for 300 million Americans. And all you have to get is 51% of those people to collude together to then actually screw over the voters. And the voters have no recourse, right? They can't vote harder. They can't actually, the only recourse they have is to take up weapons at some point. And so I literally call Bitcoin Digital 1776, to where if you look at it, the Genesis block in January 3rd of 2009 was actually put out on the same month and date as the counterinsurgency manual put out by the military. Okay, so for those that don't know, the military put out a counterinsurgency guide and nicknamed this guide Coin. They nicknamed it Coin. Funny enough, they put this out in January of 2009. And the definition or the abbreviation for Coin is actually a military civilian effort, a military civilian alliance taken to simultaneously defeat and contain insurgency and address its root causes, right? Root causes, right? Root of all evil, money. And so I believe Bitcoin is a digital counterinsurgency against the insurgents of shadow government that is doing these proof of stake protocols like elections, like big pharma, right? And so I think people need to like kind of have all this at least research it and look at it. But look, at the end of the day, I want you guys on my team. I'm not here to argue like Bitcoin versus like, honestly, I think it's kind of a waste of time to some degree, because like if one thing is like Mount Fuji and the other thing looks like a toaster, like really, what are we talking about? We're going to talk about protocols unless Craig Wright can fucking sign the Satoshi block with his own freaking signature. Like then we can talk, but like until then, like it's kind of just dumb to talk about.
Okay.
Why are you appealing to authority there, asking Craig to sign? I mean, I thought the whole point of Bitcoin was that we're free people able to do what we want. You mentioned that it's supposed to be like a new governance layer for humanity, but Bitcoin doesn't really have any governance. That's kind of the point. Gold doesn't have any governance. This is money we're talking about, not the reorganization of people.
Oh.
The governance is in the protocol. But go ahead. Sorry.
Bose has his hand up. Go ahead, Bose. Alex, we'll come back to you. Go, Bose, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, Gavin. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to respond to now. Was it G Money or was it G Money who was talking about Major Jason Lowery's book? Or was that J Paps?
Yeah, no, that was me. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, man. So I will admit straight off the bat that I haven't read Major Lowery's book. I have sort of been paying attention to him, out the corner of my eye for more than a year, maybe 2 years now. And his basic thesis, as he says, like, it's a strategic imperative to control mining. Fundamentally, that's what he's saying. He's saying an American advantage, as far as I understand it, is he wants the MOD, no, not the MOD, what do you call it? The Department of Defense, the DOD, to make Bitcoin mining part of their like financial considerations. And that's a very interesting position. And I kind of agree with him. I think it is probably a national strategic concern. But I do have that my reservations come in when he backs the 1 megabyte block size, because I think he's suffering under laboring under an illusion, right? Which is more or less what you described a minute ago, which is we've got the biggest guns, we've got the biggest miners, so therefore we're no one can fuck with this network. But that's a major misunderstanding, right? On two fronts. One, it's the most expensive thing to secure, right? The most costly. But the reason for it being the most costly is so that you can see, so that the miners scale up into big public companies that can't hide. So it's what you're saying when you're saying, well, I'm going to go with the one with the biggest miners, right? The most powerful network. All right, fair enough. That's equivalent to saying, I'm going to take the heaviest guns I can find into battle. And it's like, okay, but the heaviest guns aren't necessarily the best guns. The heaviest guns just, essentially slow you down and make you a target. So that's the first major misunderstanding of, major misunderstanding of Major Lowery. It's not a total criticism because he's not entirely wrong. You do need to take guns into battle, right? But the question is, do you take the heaviest ones that weigh you down the most?
So can I just respond to that real quick? Because I think maybe I framed it wrong. Can I just frame it really quickly?
Back to G Money. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I would just frame it as like Bitcoin being indestructible. So it's not really a weapon, right? Because it's defensive. And so like it's indestructible at this point is kind of more of what I meant. Like if you have a target that is indestructible, that can basically take on any other protocol, right? Like copy smart contracts, copy, atomic swaps, whatever it is, right? Whatever other protocol, whatever the meta out there like can do, like Bitcoin can literally just adopt it. But the thing that's unique about Bitcoin is that it's literally indestructible, right? So you can't destroy it no matter what you try to do. And like, look, guys,
destroy. I can't listen to this.
Okay.
Your own halvenings are going to destroy Bitcoin.
Okay.
BTC.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, John. Chime in. You want to go ahead, John?
You're talking about the biggest guns and all this nonsense. Even the biggest guns, you need ammunition. You got to use a big gun. You can't use BTC. Let's begin there. Let's go on to the halvening. What? How? Well, you think this price of BTC is going to keep going up to the moon just because? You think people even right now are like not even interested in buying BTC because what are they going for? They're gonna risk $70,000 so that they can make a potential 1x if the best case scenario plays out in every market. BTC it's a matter of time. It's its own enemy. The halvenings will cut the block subsidy. It's subsidized. The block will get cut in half again. There will not be enough to pay the miners. The chain it's gonzo. It's as simple as that. It's gonzo. And all this other rhetoric about us singing kumbaya together and holding hands, I'm behind the network that's going to work. I'm behind the network that can scale. I'm behind the network that can actually be used for something relevant. BTC is what? BTC is, let me buy some BTC. Let me quickly change it over to a shit coin, hopefully screw somebody, and then get it back into BTC, hoping it'll still go up. And then one day, a fool greater than myself is going to come and pick it up. This is the whole premise of BTC. It does not follow the white paper, so who cares? Who cares about the most significant document that's been written in the history of humankind when you're following a protocol, a coin, that has nothing to do with it? I mean, can we stop the clown show?
If you want to respond, I'm happy to respond. So look, I think the peer-to-peer cash white paper was kind of a ruse. It was camouflage to underscore the future of it, which was an energy-backed authority system where it could globally scale governance. Okay. And so like, look, guys, I live in reality. I don't know what world some of you guys live in, but like, if you look at the price of Bitcoin versus BSV, like it's gone down a lot. If you look at the hash rate versus Bitcoin, you know, BSV is a mole on the back of an elephant, right? On its asshole. So, like, if we keep hold on, let me just finish this one thought.
Yeah, let him finish
Jason
one at a time.
Jason Major Laurie is part of the Space Force. Okay. If you want to see one of the biggest proofs of Bitcoin being a part of this, you can easily connect the dots that Trump created the Space Force. And then if you look at the hash rate, once a Space Force was established, the hash rate just absolutely goes to the moon, which means our military is growing at an exponential rate. We have the biggest firms on the planet, BlackRock and all these other guys are on board. Like, look, I know you're probably going to, I get it. I understand the reasons why you wouldn't want that to some degree. But at the end of the day, guys, like this is a power projection game, right? And so Bitcoin is indestructible in cyberspace. It's sovereignty in cyberspace. And like, look, I do want you on my team. I'm not like hating on you guys. I think you guys are probably in the right realm. You guys should just kind of attach yourselves to, this, CIA clown named Craig Wright, who
no,
wait. I
leave you guys thing because I got a jet. Okay. First of all, G Money, good luck to you with that thinking. Really, sincerely, good luck to you. But I'll just leave you guys with my thought on Q. Okay, and all this Q, what I believe is all this Q garbage. Let's be real here. I don't know about you guys, but I have bills to pay. I have a relatively new car. I have a home with a mortgage. Me picking up my quote unquote guns and doing something when I don't like the direction the country is going for whatever reason is not something I want to do. Actually, I believe it's not something anybody wants to do. And there are true patriots in America, true patriots that would be willing to give everything up in order to change. The thing is, nobody really wants to do it. And you can't blame them for some of the reasons I stated earlier. So what's a perfect way to quell the anger of people? Make them believe Someone's already taking care of it. Don't worry, Q is on it. You don't have to scrap everything you've ever worked for in your life, pick up a gun and go die on some hill. Don't worry, Q is going to take care of it for you. Q is on it. Okay, awesome. Q's on it, so let me sit back because Q's taking care of it. I literally don't have to sacrifice everything I've built, my family, my home, my this, my that. That is what I believe the real purpose of Q. Not to do anything, but to make you believe something is being done. That way, you won't do anything. So on that note, Gavin, great space.
Right on, John.
Have a good night.
I'll just respond
Awesome
one thing to that. If you understand 5G warfare, 5G warfare is primarily a non-kinetic battle. Okay, meaning we don't fight with muskets, we don't fight with guns, we're not like rushing, Washington to take power back, right? That's proof of stake. That's a stakeholder type of centralized power. But 5G warfare is the art of non-kinetic peaceful warfare. And so I believe this entire operation, the Q operation plus Bitcoin, is a digital peaceful counterinsurgency from we the people that decentralizes power and gives power back to we the people in a peaceful way. And so
That's garbage.
You're just a little bit confused.
Okay, let's go to
that's garbage. That's garbage.
Bose, you're up.
Saying it's peaceful
one at a time, guys. So hold on.
is
Let's go one at a
tautology,
time.
it's idiocy.
A pen was mightier than the sword. American troops would be holding pocket protectors. Okay, that's a bunch of crap, guys. I'm out.
Okay, J Paps, good to see you. Bose, one at a time, guys. Let's try to go one at a time. That way we don't talk over each other. Bose, you're up.
Much better way to look at this is America thrived fundamentally by taking the middleman out of commerce, right? That was Adam Smith's doctrine. It was Tominaga Nakamoto's doctrine, we're told. And the idea is that free trade returns the most wealth to the most amount of people if you get the fuck out of the way and let people trade with each other. And you can do that on a protocol that scales with millions and billions of transactions per second. And you can't do that on a protocol that only scales to 4 transactions per second. And so all this hype and bullshit and nonsense that this guy is telling us, G-Money is telling us, is either not thought through or it's extremely deceptive and purposefully so. Because what he's essentially saying is American security rests on restricting this network and suppressing it to 4 transactions per second instead of millions of transactions per second. And why would he say that? Because he's infected by the American hegemony. Americans, maybe, including Major Lowry, are scared that if this technology actually scales and fundamentally facilitates and enables global commerce at a scale of 1 million or 1 billion transactions per second between people all over the world, then they won't get their cut. And all of this bullshit about, oh, it's freedom money and oh, it's an insurgency or it's a peaceful warfare is garbage. It's bullshit.
Alex Favell.
Yeah, I can't really remember why I had my hand up now. But there was a thought I had earlier about the size of the guns, but I think Bose makes a very good point in that, like, you don't want the heaviest guns, you want the right tool, you want the right kind of guns for the operation you're carrying out. And the 5th generational warfare, where it's fought in the mind, is very much real. It's very well documented now. That, like, Einstein was kind of right in that he's like, I don't know what weapons World War IV will be fought with, but I know what weapons don't know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but I know that World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones. Well, the weapons World War III are fought with are psychological in nature. It's words, it's censorship, because the best type of prison is one you can't see and one that you actually agree with fundamentally. But it also, if you read, like Robert Greene's 33 Strategies of War, which is based off Sun Tzu's The Art of War, they're basically saying no matter how you fight a war, when you win, you have to convince the people that you are on the right side. So 5th generational warfare is actually looking at war in a much more holistic approach, in that you need to convince the people to go to war, and then you need to convince the people that the war was worth it. Bitcoin's very similar in that any war that will be fought over Bitcoin will be primarily psychological, financial, and securitized after that. So I find it kind of interesting that you think that the price of Bitcoin is actually what you should be looking at, when we know that markets are primarily driven by psychological reasoning, which may or may not be correct. I mean, like 2008 is the perfect example of that. Ponzi schemes have existed since Charles Ponzi. We need to actually look at what the truth is, and the truth is described in the Bitcoin white paper, and BTC does not represent that. If you believe that Bitcoin is supposed to be freedom money, then that should be what was represented in 2009. You can say that it's camouflage and stuff, whatever you want, but if that's what you think, then what you're advocating for is not Bitcoin. It's whatever ideology you're putting on top of it.
Okay, can we just add one more tidbit that Satoshi came back and emailed in support of the smaller blocks? I mean, we can add. Okay.
We cannot, partly because that email doesn't necessarily support smaller blocks. It rubbishes the idea of two implementations of the protocol. You know, Satoshi at that time may have been thinking a fork would have been the worst thing possible for Bitcoin, and I don't necessarily disagree with him. But at the same time, we needed bigger blocks ASAP, and the people advocating for smaller blocks, I think, have proven over the past 15 years that they are not friendly to Bitcoin. So yes, we can say that he emailed in support of a single implementation. We can't say that he emailed in support of smaller blocks.
We got one guy with his hand up here, crypto anarchist. Looks like your hand's up. Oh, and then Craig Mason, you're up next. Go ahead, crypto anarchist.
Yeah, I think Pavel probably covered most of what I had my hand up for. I've been in fact, I have the same screen name on BitcoinTalk.org. I was on there back in 2011, and Bitcoin was hijacked almost from the beginning. The devs that moved into it, even like back in 2011, 2012, a lot of them had, you know, conflicts of interest. They were probably working for some kind of agency. You know, I'm talking about like guys like Greg Maxwell, Luke Jr. or whatever his name was. Those guys, I never really trusted those guys. And then you get to the AXA buying Blockstream and all the shenanigans and censorship in social media over the block size increase. And to top that off, they also cornered the market on miners back in like 2014 when ASICs were first coming out. You know, you had the powers that be buying up all the Butterfly Labs and running everybody's machines while they were waiting for their orders, and then handing them off once the difficulty went up. I mean, this has been cornered and manipulated for a long time. And Bitcoin used to be real simple. Back in like 2012, you could send $1,000 for less than a penny. So, I mean, think about that. Now you can't. I went to move. I haven't used it in a long time. I was on an exchange. I tried to remove $100 worth of Bitcoin off, and it was going to cost me $100. I was like, that's ridiculous. This is completely useless now. So I don't. Anybody arguing that this has any kind of value, it is 100% bullshit, banking bullshit at this point. The only way it's going to work is if like it's rebooted on a private blockchain with people that kind of know each other in real life, get it to a certain point, have some trusted nodes on the network that people know are reference nodes, and build it over again. Now that ASICs are a little bit more ubiquitous and there's a lot more of them out in the wild, I think it'll be harder to corner the market on them anyway. So that's my 2 cents.
Nice. Well said. Craig Mason, over to you.
Yeah, so I want to respond quickly to the idea that, and maybe I think Alex Favel already responded to this, but the important thing to know about Q is that it's the importance that is dropped in there many times is the point is public awakening. And if you don't think public awakening is important, you should go watch the video, The Story of Your Enslavement by Stefan Molyneux. You can find it on pretty much, I just searched for it on Rumble or on BitChute or even YouTube. I think it's on there. It's by Stefan Molyneux. He talks about how you have to see how they enslave you in order to stop them from enslaving you. I.e., it's not just guns, not the biggest guns, because that's terribly inefficient. They have to get you to accept your enslavement. It's like Goethe said, there's no one more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they're free. And that's, I think, a big, possibly the keystone of Q is that public awakening is their greatest fear. And I think that's what we're seeing happening. And on that note, I think it's also important, when you consider BTC versus BSV, BTC, everyone cited a lot of the flaws here. And it is very much like a Ponzi scheme because it's a situation where people have to believe the price is going to keep going up to think it's going to be a good system. Now, I know that Bitcoin in itself has a lot more to that, but BTC, the chain, versus BSV, the chain, if it is, it's the biggest elephant, and BSV is a speckle on its ass at this point. But that's a big, huge army that could run out of ammo, could run out of manpower. That doesn't mean it'll always be the biggest army. If you look in the long term, what's going to be the most sustainable, that I think you'll find you might find some flaws there. The idea that the white paper also is some kind of red herring about P2P cash not being important, that seems positively Orwellian to me. It removes the middleman from money. That's what made it novel. People have said it many times. There was digital cash before Bitcoin. There was online peer-to-peer cash before Bitcoin, but no one ever solved the Byzantine generals problem. And, when you tell that to most people, their eyes kind of glaze over. But I think when you really get down to why Bitcoin is unique, it's because it's the first system ever to solve that problem. And that's what allows it to have trustless peer-to-peer cash. So I think that to remove that from Bitcoin, you don't have Bitcoin anymore. Regardless of you say how we should scale it, if you get rid of Bitcoin's uniqueness to solve the Byzantine generals problem, it's not really that unique anymore. And one note on the problem of Bitcoin, in that you have this small cadre of developers who have infiltrated instead of invaded and changed the protocol, which is why we're having a lot of this discussion today. It's peer-to-peer cash on-chain versus off-chain Lightning Network, etc. on BTC. That's obviously a problem, a concentration of power you have there. There's also, and this is kind of an aside, but we've been talking about the Q drops, and there's someone referenced in there, I'm guessing a lot of you have heard of, Judy Shelton, who was Trump's appointee to the Fed in, I don't know, sometime in his first term. She never got confirmed, but she's written off by haters as a gold bug, but she has a lot of interesting points. And she has a video that was circulating around a few years ago where she says, I would like to take I'm a fan of the gold standard, and we need a rules-based approach, a level monetary playing field, and we can do it in a very cryptocurrency way. It gets you thinking about certain things about Bitcoin and BSV. But her new book that just came out, I think exactly a month ago in October, it's called Good as Gold. And it's a great read. Regardless of any Bitcoin details, it's really interesting. It's like, if you've liked Hayek or Hazlitt or any of those guys, it's on that level of really explaining economics in an accessible way. And in there, she talks about how you could have money referenced on some kind of asset. And she mentions Bitcoin. And she also cites, but she says one of the main problems with it is that it has this small group of volunteers and developers who are funded by who knows who, and it's going to, that's a big risk with it. So just wanted to give that book recommendation as well. But it's I'll leave it there. I think there's a lot to be desired with what BTC has to say.
Yeah,
Craig, have you read software yet?
No, I'm familiar with the concept, and on that note, these concepts were of proof of work as a costly signal have been talked about before, Mr. Lowry or whatever his name is, and be amongst Bitcoin and BSV circles before BSV was a thing.
Yeah, and so the only other thing I would say is like, this kind of talk started off as like American democracy, proof of stake shitcoin. It started off with like elections, right? And so like, if we were going to secure sensitive data, like the only way we can do that now is through encoded logic. Okay, so say we wanted to secure election data to make sure there was no rigging. We all know Joe Biden didn't get 81 million votes. None of us are actually able to prove our vote is legitimate on a public ledger that nobody can mess with. And so let's take, for instance, like Bitcoin, not using it as a coin. We're using it as power. Okay, so what we can do is we can protect networks by charging them a fee to access the network. We can say, you know what, if you want to, come into this network, guess what? You get to charge a fee. And so what happens is this cost functionality that's built into Bitcoin is actually a protective layer in like how we protect our air, how we protect our sea, how we protect our land, right? It's a power projection into cyberspace. And so what that means is like, if we wanted to secure an election, would you rather have a ledger that's backed by like, 4 times the size of the US military? Or would you rather have it backed by like one Coast Guard on like, on a boat with a machine gun? And that's kind of like, I think the way we need to think about this, right? Because if we're not using this as coin, if we're using this as actually a digital governance, a data projection into cyberspace of how to protect data, how to protect networks, you're going to want to have the one that's got the biggest defense mechanism. You're going to want to have
both. Wouldn't you want both? I mean, BSV is both. How is BSV insecure? There's never been a double spend. Why doesn't someone attack it?
Well, here's the thing, Craig. Like it's 1,000 times more powerful. You cannot physically
That's
generate
not answering my question.
power. I'm telling you, you cannot physically generate enough power to overtake the Bitcoin network at this point. In BSV, I'm pretty sure you can, right? You can spin up a small, nuclear power plant and probably overtake the hash rate of BSV pretty quickly. So I'm just saying, I think if we logically think about how to protect our data in the future, we need to have a network that has the biggest, most robust defense. And right now that's Bitcoin. Like, look, if it changes, I'm open to it, right? But like, I think we need to think in those terms versus like the technicalities, the cult of personalities, all that stuff kind of goes out the window when we're dealing with power, right? We are dealing with power, end of story. If your power is less and you cannot protect yourselves, you are going to get overrun. That is just a fact of life and over 14 billion years of just natural freaking law. And so look, I hope you guys have a little bit of BTC, right? If you want to, you want to speculate with BSV, fine. I hope at least you guys have a little bit because I would hate for people that are in the good-minded space of freedom, sovereignty, and all that stuff to get, left behind.
Okay, that was really good, G-Money. Thank you. So, okay, new speakers on stage. Who do we got with their hand up? Oh, let's see. Anybody added? Oh, Bose, you want to come back up? Craig, did you want to respond?
No, I'll leave it there.
Okay, 3-6. Scott, you're up, dude. Good to see you.
Alex Favell's got his hand up.
Oh, okay. Alex.
Yeah, cheers. G-Money, the security of Bitcoin, I think needs a rework in the way you think about it. So from the BSV perspective, the security of Bitcoin is the fact that it's public. And what that means is that if you want to double spend on the system, cause reorgs, steal people's money or whatnot, you have to claim it publicly. You have to claim you're attacking publicly, basically. And that is a bit of a problem because a attack is illegal. It's a dishonest actor working against the goodwill of all the other participants. So in essence, the reason why Bitcoin is immutable is just because it's public. It's not really got anything to do with the hash rate. The hash rate is a way for the nodes to organize a single thread of events economically without fear of an individual in that network overpowering the rest for their own betterment. And even if it is for their own betterment and they are successful, they have to effectively claim the money publicly. So when it moves, obviously everyone's like, oh, well, this is the money of the attacker. You know, as soon as it moves, if you receive it, you know immediately and you can report whoever it was. But that's kind of not really the point. The hash rate is kind of a misnomer. It's necessary for the organization, but it's not necessary for the security. At the end of the day, they're both public, and securing your information in public is very difficult. It requires techniques beyond just encryption, which is what the internet currently uses. The internet is okay with just using encryption because all the messages are ephemeral. So like there's no database of the internet where you can look up the entire history of every packet that's ever traversed it. Bitcoin, there is. So you need to secure your information, you know, the metadata of the transaction, because obviously all the information about the transaction other than what it was for and who it was is public.
So back to the, let me just chime in, back to the idea of this American democracy proof of work stake. You know, proof of work is a shit coin with American democracy, and Bitcoin fixes this. I mean, I think his, G Money's point is well taken on the fact that it's okay, let's just say in its surface view, it's the biggest thing. So it seems the most secure, I guess, on the surface. So on the, and looking at it that way. So I guess to his point, why is it not, I mean, if you're Donald Trump or these people in office, it looks, without going deep into it, it looks the best on the surface because it's so big and powerful. So I mean, that is
that's also a one-sided lens, though. You could say the biggest one is the one with the most transactions.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like looking at tigers and going, the saber-tooth tiger is the most dangerous because it's got the biggest teeth. But a saber-tooth tiger might not actually be able to bite you because it can't open its jaws enough, right? Which might be why they went extinct or something. So you kind of got to look at the features and, balance out whether it's a good thing that it's so high or not. And one of the things in Bitcoin that's really important is the number of transactions that you're processing. In effect, if you look at a single transaction as like a person in the army, how big is your army, right? Like how many people do you actually have using the tools to fight back against whatever it is you're fighting?
That's well taken. Scott, you were going to respond or comment. I didn't, and I cut you off.
No, I just was saying my point the same as what Pavel said. You're saying it's the biggest, it's this, but that's a monetary value, and we know that's inflated artificially through Tether. We know BlackRock are now pumping and dumping it constantly and complete manipulation of the price. So, I view bigger as in, okay, 8 billion people can use it. It can be data flow as well as transactional flow, rather than, oh, it's the biggest money, but no utility. Don't worry about the utility. Just keep buying. It's a ridiculous statement.
I just bring one thing up is that I think there's some cute mental gymnastics going on about the saber-tooth tiger, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But power, some of you guys are literally ignoring billions of years of evolution. Like power competitions, that's all we've ever been in. Okay. And so you can talk about all these cute things, right? But in the real world, right? That saber-tooth is going to fucking eat you.
So G Money,
I'm just saying, that's going to happen. And
wait. You're right. You're right in one sense that Favel's argument was that it's public and part of the security is being public. But the context of this whole conversation is that you're up against government and government. And if you're going to talk about deep state, they clearly do not care if they publicly break laws, right? So in that sense, I think you're right. But the one thing I think that is straight math, there's no dancing around like you're talking about now, that a straight math is if you send one BTC on the network, because the point of being secure is that your transaction doesn't get double spent, correct? And you don't get defrauded of money. So if you send one BTC on the BTC network, that is worth $76,000, right? and the hash behind that transaction that's putting it in a block is 1,000 times more, whatever the ratio is, than BSV. If you send one BSV, yes, it has 1,000 times less hash rate behind the transaction, but it also has 1,000 times less value. It's only worth whatever it's worth, $52. So that the whole point of like security in Bitcoin is that it's economic security, and the margins, the profitability of double spending the transaction on BTC at $76,000, the margin of that is the same as trying to double spend on BSV. Now, does it take less hash power to double spend on BSV? 100% correct that it is. And if somebody wants to be like, if somebody just has ill intentions and wants to double spend BSV, they can absolutely do that with less overhead. But the point is that the profit will be the same in the long run. So eventually they will go bankrupt if they want to do it forever. And the same thing with BTC. Eventually they would go bankrupt. And to say that BTC cannot be attacked is rather crazy when you have the majority of the hash rate sitting in the United States. With public companies controlling a large portion of it. I mean, the top 3 miners are like 75% of the hash rate. So you got 3 entities that control BTC, and even worse on BSV, you have essentially 1 entity, 2 entities that control BSV.
Pose your hands up.
Hi, yeah. No, I just wanted to say that this thing about securing your data is sort of, you can't do that on 4 transactions per second. You know, if you want, you could allow 4 people globally to secure their data. Well, what data? Their Gmail, their emails, really at 4? It doesn't work. So you do have to have, if you want it to be a security system, you have to be hashing millions or billions of transactions per second, because you just need to have the capacity to handle a volume of people's needs. And from a security perspective, the economic security is really the important argument. So if you go to the bank and you take out a £10 note from the ATM and they charge you £500,000 in a withdrawal fee, well, that's not economic security. But that is what you're talking about on BTC. If you wanted to secure a tiny bit of data for 1,000th of a penny or 10,000th of a penny, and BTC charged you £5 in transaction fees, that's roughly the equivalent of the £10, £500,000 withdrawal fee analogy that I made a minute ago. It's not economic security. It's not security of any kind. And so your argument that like, oh, it's the most expensive, it's got the most energy, it's got the biggest miners, it's not. I mean, it's completely misunderstanding what security is. And if your argument is, well, we need to control this network in order to suppress the economic security model of Bitcoin so that American hegemony can hold on to power, then maybe I would agree with you. But that's the sign of a dying democracy that's turning into an authoritarian and oppressive global hegemon. Like it's a bad path to go down.
Interesting. I mean, what about, why not just do, I mean, G-Money, you made some interesting points about doing a layer 2 solution. I think you mentioned, and I wrote it down, it was like, which was about actually using economic power, which I thought was well taken. What you said, you actually have to spend your Bitcoin to get to the layer 2 solution, which would be a form of a proof of work. So,
right.
Did you want to?
Proof of burn is what it's called, layer 2 counterparty. And again, that's where I think like the biggest Q proof probably resides. And so guys, like, again, a lot of my research is based upon mathematics and like coincidences, right? And so like, look, when I was going down my crypto rabbit hole, I've looked at everything, right? I looked into every single thing out there. And like, if we're truly going to have a global scalable foundation, we need to have tokenization, because you guys are right in the fact that Bitcoin does not scale to 8 billion people. I completely agree with that. However, if Bitcoin is not just merely a coin, if it's merely more of a global governance, energy-backed authority ledger that is immutable, okay, then we're talking about something completely different, and we can transact with stable coins. We can use tokenizations. There's so many other avenues that we can use, but we can secure the base layer in the freedom for humanity to make sure it's unfuckwithable. And that's my.
Well,
that's
hold
my,
on. We're fundamentally not saying that it doesn't scale to 8 billion people. We're saying the opposite. We're saying it does scale to serve 8 billion people on layer one. So you've got us completely wrong.
Okay. Well, anyways, I appreciate Gavin and his, his hosting abilities and being fair and honest about everything. And, it's a fun conversation. I don't, again, I want you guys all on our team. I think you guys are all good people. I think we have some differences, but I'm happy to talk and, whatever, invite me back. I'd be happy to join. Yeah. Thank you, G Money, for coming in and giving us your time today and giving us, a given perspective. So, that's the idea, is that I don't know everything. And, I really appreciate. And I don't claim to either. And I don't claim to either. Yeah. This technology is new and it's highly tech, friendly. So when it comes to the nuances, it takes expert opinion, to be honest. I mean, I'm a legal guy. So when it comes to this stuff, I'd be calling expert witnesses and be like, okay, expert witness, tell me all about this, because that's why I think you guys would get some interesting insights if you read some of my research papers that actually relates to open source blockchain being part of the proofs. And so read them, and if they're interesting, cool. But I think you'll get some insight out of that, Gavin, that you may find a fresh perspective on. Absolutely. We'll put it up. Casey will put those up in the nest for everyone to take a look at. And well, thank you, G Money. You're welcome to stay on, and I'd like to just bring up a couple of other topics as well here while we're here, and feel free to stay on and chime in if you like. Thank you for coming in. So one of the things, Casey, you mentioned, is the, okay, let me just comment a couple of things that are unknown here. Is the regulatory side of all this, because some of the things that I think the BTC or the block size war is missing is that we do have a regulatory framework that already exists, and part of it is civil, part of it's criminal, and the civil side is run through the patent offices internationally, UK, Japan, and then of course the United States. And so when it comes to moving forward on projects, they look to that, whether it's regulators or whether it's large business or enterprises. And, one of the things about, tokenizing elections, well, they have to, really look toward, well, what property and what inventions are already patented so that we can't step on other people's property. And when I started researching that side of things, I just, it became clear that one entity had completely covered the whole industry with patents. And it was unmissable, so whether those are all sound or not, I don't know, but, it's definitely something to consider, that they are there. But yeah, I wanted to just go over. Casey, did you want to bring up that what is it?
Yeah, I would really love to bring up one other topic that I don't feel got enough attention today, and appeal to G Money's activist side when it comes to, democracy, which is the rule by the people. And I think it doesn't take a very hard look at the internet today to see that a lot of people are being censored. And as a mother, that's how I found my way to Bitcoin, because I started creating content and I started getting kicked off Facebook and grounded, and I couldn't go live and I couldn't build my presence as a content creator. So it caused me to start looking into, Steam it and all the different things that were coming up in the crypto industry, like Presearch and FutureNet. I'm sure you've heard a lot of those. Those were all scams that I lost lots of money in. But I eventually found my way to BSV and the micropayments that you can earn for creating content on some of the platforms that enabled content creators to own our data and earn directly, for what we were contributing to the internet peer-to-peer, which really appealed to the activist in me of how we can take our power back online. And so that's kind of why I lean more towards BSB, because I feel like the BTC camp are the people that are censoring the internet. If you really follow the money up to the top of who's pulling all those strings, it's the same people. So the activist in me is what keeps me here. And I just really think that, maybe if you had gotten a chance to play on Lament or Twitch or Streamanity or some of these platforms that enabled you to put a podcast episode up there and charge 5 cents or $5 or whatever you wanted to charge, that would, really help you understand the difference in how BSV is going to actually be the plumbing of the next evolution of our internet. It's not just about the money, and it really empowers people to be able to transact with each other directly, globally, and that's what we need to restore power back to the people in a democratic way. So, the other thing that I wanted to mention that Gavin was alluding to there was that the passing off case witness statements page is live, and I did add it to the nest. And G Money, if you're not aware, there is a ongoing case where Craig Wright is suing the BTC core developers and partnerships for the wrongful passing off of BTC as Bitcoin. So long-term play that might not be as stable as you make it out to be. The tide can change pretty quick if some big people start to catch on that there might be a major Ponzi at play here. So I encourage you to look into this passing off page here, and maybe you can get involved with this case. And that's really all I wanted to add, is nobody's brought up the micropayment opportunity and the peer-to-peer content creation empowerment that we have available to us with BSV. So, please take another look at that as a content creator, G Money, because we'd love to see how we can support you with micropayments of BSV. And I also invite you to download a Handcash wallet and post your handle, in this thread from the space here today, and we'll send you some love that way as well.
Beautiful. Thanks, Casey. I really appreciate that, and I'm really sorry to hear about your child and your story. And I think the whole world has been affected by the poison that Fauci put on the entire world. And you're right, we do need a open, free, robust internet. Okay, and so again, back to the defenses, right? Back to AI, back to all these different technocratic things that they're trying to use to control us. Putting proof of work behind these platforms, right? Bitcoin is the physical internet. Okay. And so if we want the indestructible internet, we need to have a foundation that cannot be messed with. Right. And so, there is protocols like Nostr that I've used where you can put proof of work behind posts. You can actually open up a protocol layer to where no single authority has algorithm control, and you're just, operating relays. Okay. And so I know there's that, and Bitcoin has Bitcoin Lightning, right? Like El Salvador's use case, I think, is something that a lot of people are ignoring. You don't just institute martial law in a country overran with MS-13, and Craig knows MS-13 was a huge part of the Q drops, because a lot of us believe that Seth Rich was murdered by MS-13 thugs. A lot of us believe that MS-13 is behind a lot of the murders, okay, that have happened, through, random incidents, right? In Las Vegas, the security guard was MS-13, right? And so, Q talked about MS-13 being a priority and that nobody understood why that was. And so you have a leader like Nayib Bukele, who has taken the most, the murder capital of the entire world into the safest country in the world, right? And that doesn't happen just by buying Bitcoin and going on the Bitcoin standard, right? There is something else at play there. And if you read my dig into the Covfefe dig and you understand 1111, Nayib gave us an 1111 numerology hit when he had his Tucker Carlson interview. He said that he applied to multiple different factions in their political process, and that they all either closed up or were trashed overnight, and that at 11:11 p.m. he luckily got into one political party that allowed him to stay and didn't collapse overnight, and he became president. Okay, and so I think Craig even agrees in some of the stuff that Trump was probably installed in 2016, and that the elections process and devolution has been taking place ever since. And so we look at these things and we look at an example to the world. El Salvador literally means the savior, and they've adopted Bitcoin Lightning. They allow people to spend in Bitcoin Lightning, which is another second layer protocol. And so I'm not trying to convince you guys. I'm just trying to offer another point of view and to be like, maybe we should look a little bit deeper into some of these things that have happened, right? I'm all for people making money and doing things online. I think it's a great way that we connect with each other. But at the end of the day, like, we need to have something that has a foundation that cannot be broken, that cannot be messed with by a small group of people. And that is, why I advocate for why I do, is because I want to live in a future of freedom and sovereignty that no small group of people can change. And that's
Beautiful.
really what it's about.
Nice.
So you're,
Hands up, Joe.
yeah. So G Money, you're kind of offering a handout or building a bridge, and because we have a lot of like similar interests and similar beliefs, which is kind of abnormal in the space. So just to take advantage of that, like one of the things you said was, I hope you have some BTC because I wouldn't want to see other freedom-minded individuals be left behind. So what is your biggest concern for us? Like today, we're all using BSV. We're transacting freely with no intermediary, whatever, no government control. What do you see as your biggest concern that's going to stop that? And I'd like to share my opinion on the flip side of that as well.
I mean, I don't think anything's going to necessarily stop it. I just think over time, like, the energy that's spent is going to get less and less valuable over time. So, that's kind of what I think, is I think, there is a definite plan. Like, I don't think anybody like theorized that BlackRock would start buying, thousands of coins a day, right? Like, none of us had that on our bingo card. And look, if you look at who actually owns the Bitcoin, BlackRock doesn't own it. Who owns it? Coinbase, right? What's Coinbase's ticker symbol? Coin, right? Counterinsurgency. Why did Joe Biden veto a bill that allowed banks to custody their Bitcoin? And this comes back to the Q stuff. This comes back to devolution, right? If you look at Trump's executive order, where it says freezing and actually taking the assets of companies and corporations involved in human rights abuse and human trafficking, I truly believe BlackRock is responsible in part of that. And if they don't have access to their Bitcoin, but they're buying it at a crazy pace, what's to say that this devolution doesn't kick in at some time? And, the DOJ knocks on Coinbase's door and says, hey, BlackRock is involved in all this fraud. JP Morgan, right? They had a boat full of cocaine. Like, these guys, these bankers are not here to help us. And I believe that there is some plan in the background that will eventually either confiscate or perhaps, whatever happens, right? Possibly to that degree. So that's kind of where I think this may go. And that's why I think there's something else going on that maybe most people are missing.
Joe?
So I think it's actually worse than that, in that I have a systemic concern, because you brought up like wanting to have your transactions and your money backed by the most secure chain with the most proof of work. And I agree with you. Like, I want my transactions to have the most proof of work behind them, regardless of the whole argument about profit and economic viability, right? And it's also a sign of success. But the problem is that systemically, as this system gains success, it becomes more expensive for me to transact on chain. So my freedom to transact on chain is disrupted. Now, I can use these layer twos that are being built out, but that defeats the whole purpose of what we've been talking about, of what we value. If we value the proof of work, going to Lightning doesn't have proof of work back transactions, right? Like, you can call them secure because they're what's the word for it? That they have the penalty fees for whatever if you like do something egregious. But at the end of the day, if the whole point is to have transactions that are fraud proof because they're backed by proof of work, but then we just go to a layer two that isn't backed by proof of work, and I can't afford to pay whatever it is when this system is adopted, $10 a transaction or whatever it is. Like, if that's the whole point, is be behind the secure system, but then we don't actually use the system, then what is the point? It's like systemically we move away from the security that we're bragging about.
Well, I think this goes back to like Trump calling it a stockpile. Like the only time you use the term stockpile is in like weapons, right? You don't stockpile like dollars, you stockpile weapons. And if we're thinking of Bitcoin as this new, digital arms race, Satoshi talked about it as digital arms, then maybe we're looking at it from a completely different perspective, right? Maybe we need to look at it as more of a security, right? Securing the internet, securing elections, securing governance, perhaps. Yeah. And then on top of that security level, we can build, right, utility. We can build stable coins. We can use other type, maybe BSVs as a stable coin, right? Or something to that effect, to where like the main layer is secure, right? Like I think we all want to be secure on at least one foundational level. Okay. And so that's kind of where I look at it, is being secure is probably the number one priority in a communication system, in a unfuckwithable ledger. Like we all want security as probably the primary source. And then, the other utilities of using it as peer-to-peer cash, or using it as, tokenization, whatever that be, can all be built and scalable, I think, to where it makes more sense.
Yeah, let me jump in. One thing that is really significant here that we can all find common ground on, I think, is that and the MIT license in the original software, it really open sourced it to where anybody could change it and do whatever they wanted to it, whether it was Digibyte or Litecoin or even with Ethereum, and that's been completely okay. But it really, what this new case and it all comes down to is just one thing, and that's just the naming rights. So it really, everything that you're talking about there, G Money, I would 100% support, and I actually think it makes complete sense, as long as it's not called, what the white paper describes. Because that white paper uses that word Bitcoin, and then that's what's there, and then something else. So I think that's what this big case is going to come down to, is just the naming rights, and whether, all these other protocols are great. I think it's fantastic. And if Trump or the U.S. government supports that type of protocol and it's called BTC, that's absolutely great. And I have no objection to it. I think that the public has a right to know that, if they're buying something, they're buying it. That's what they're getting. The name, should be whatever's described from the instruction manual. And so we'll see. That's how what's happening right now. Any comments, questions? Raise your hand or jump in. We've got Joe. Is your hand up?
Shouldn't be.
No. Okay. But yeah, on the legal stuff, with the naming rights case, it is a passing off case, and so we'll see. It is an all or marbles, type of thing, but a lot of people are going to find out about it. I mean, I think one of the interesting analogies is that MicroStrategy stuff that any of you guys saw that from the beginning in the history. In 2000, it was March of 2000. I think it was March 20th, 2000, where MicroStrategy stock dropped 60% of its value in one day, and that was the very first drop of the .com bubble. MicroStrategy. we can look back at history on that and how it's playing out. And so if we're looking at this from a psychological operation or maybe a planned operation of a bigger picture, now we have MicroStrategy again promoting this industry, this new industry. Here they are again promoting it, and they're the biggest proponent of it. So if history repeats itself twice, it's something to be concerned about. And one of the things I think is it should be mentionable is the MicroStrategy is a public company. They have a duty to report the passing off claim, because it could affect their stock price. And if it is reported to their investors that the stock price could be affected dramatically by the passing off case, that even alone, passing off case is bogus. Let's say it's no good. It's a bad case. It's a fraud. Say all that, but still, if it gets reported to the investors of the MicroStrategy, public company, a lot of investors are going to have questions. They're going to consider it a risk. So these are just things to be aware of. In a global economic sense. So yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention here that, anyone can offer a witness statement, minors, businesses, smallholders. And something I wanted to point out is the deed of promise, which is Dr. Craig Wright is meeting all costs. And after the case is successful, He will be reimbursed for all his expenses, and the remainder will be appropriately divided among the community, businesses, and others affected. The deed of promise is the document where Dr. Wright binds himself to any excess from the proceedings to be reinvested into the Bitcoin community to build and restore the Bitcoin ecosystem. So just keeping that in mind for when we have hyper Bitcoinization, it could very well be this ecosystem. And I think BlackRock's ETF documents even stated in there that they are also potentially going to switch to the ticker that actually functions at any moment. So,
hey, okay, we got a new speaker on stage, XCSLER. Go ahead, my man. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
Good. Good. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, my microphone's working.
You know, come a little closer if you could. It's a little bit quiet.
How about now?
That's a little better. Go ahead.
The whole concept of having a secure base layer where where the transaction rate is 7 transactions per second is really pathetic and comical, and I can't believe we're still having these discussions. I mean, you know, we have history to look at with what happened with gold, and the exact same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin. Already, the vast majority of BTC participants hold their coins with trusted third parties. It's right, it's right in the white paper what Satoshi thought about trusted third parties, and that's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to avoid trusted third parties. I mean, we've got to figure out better messaging to get rid of this idea that, you know, Bitcoin needs to be that we're so focused on the hash rate, and we're not focused enough on the distribution of coins. You know, years ago, it was, the mantra was not your keys, not your coins, and now we've sort of, the messaging has been sort of shifted to Bitcoin is going to be a reserve asset, and it's pristine collateral, and all this financial BS. Ultimately, it's not your keys, not your coins. And ultimately, BTCers don't believe in free markets. They don't believe in spontaneous order. They pay it lip service. And it's delaying. Bitcoin will be adopted. The only issue is the timeline of global adoption, in my mind. And BTC has set us back decades, if not centuries. And what's going to happen, in my mind, is that on-chain we already saw this. We already had a preview with ordinals, and it brought back, you know, the BTC block size debate was dead about a year and a half ago until ordinals came out, and all of a sudden we're having these conversations again. Well, if on-chain transaction, and as more people adopt Bitcoin, comes to fruition over the years, we're going to see increased usage of the base layer, and we're going to see higher transaction fees, and that's going to economically price out the vast majority of people, 99% of the people, from using the base layer. They're not going to have their keys, they're not going to have their coins. It's all going to be with trusted third parties, and oh yeah, we'll be able to audit all those Bitcoins, but we're not going to be able to audit the liabilities of these of the people who are holding of the trusted third parties that are holding those Bitcoins. And you know, what's her name from Custodia Bank? I'm blanking on her name, but she was worried about rehypothecation, and she was right on the money with rehypothecation. And that's what we're going to see. We have no idea how many liabilities and the liability asset mismatch is going on with these ETFs and with Coinbase, and these banks, these Bitcoin banks, can just inflate the liabilities. Yeah, sure, we can audit it and we can know that there are 20 million or 21 million Bitcoins circulating, but the liabilities could be 40 million, 100 million, who knows? And then what have we gained? And oh, the hash power could be in the exahashes or whatever comes after exahashes. It could be 1 trillion exahashes, but who the hell cares? No one's using the chain. So ultimately, you know, BTC is going to undergo another crisis, and I don't know how it plays out, but hopefully these guys, instead of paying lip service to free markets, they understand that the block sizes have to be determined by free markets. You have to remove the cap. You have to trust spontaneous order to figure out the right trade-off between medium of exchange utility and store value utility. And you just got to go back to basics. You got to go back to Friedrich Hayek and read that shit and understand it, and not be afraid to implement it. And even, I like BCH too, but they put in this stupid freaking ABLA crap, and they don't even trust the free market. The ABLA cap, I just found out, can only allow that chain to scale 2x over the course of 1 year. I mean, that's freaking pathetic. Look, I have concerns with BSV too. I don't know what this whole deal is with the, digit asset forfeiture, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Digital asset recovery.
Digital asset recovery. Thank you. That worries me a bit. I assume that even with that in place, if I don't give my keys to anyone, if I don't share my identity with anyone, that my coins can never be frozen. That's my rudimentary understanding. I don't know if that's correct, but anyways, it's just very frustrating, to hear BTCers, uphold the free market on the one hand, but completely misunderstand it when the chips are on the table and with the most vital aspect of Bitcoin at stake. And rant over.
Nice. Craig Mason, any comments from you? You've been listening patiently here.
No, I don't think I have much to add. The micropayments is an underrated thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Casey, because I don't think you can have that on BTC. And there's a lot of people who make a lot of money from ad revenue, which doesn't align the incentives the way that micropayments do. And another thing that, I think you mentioned this too, Casey, is that the censorship is so much greater. The opportunity for it is so much greater when you have centralized payment processors. I've created a lot of content in my day, and if I saw someone tweet the other day, if you're making good money from content creation, there's not a good chance that you're being totally honest. And like people like Joe Rogan make a ton of money and they bring some really great ideas. I'm not trying to slag him off totally, but some people just can't help but be totally honest with what they see, and they tend to get banned. I mean, I haven't made a ton of money from content creation, but I got banned from YouTube, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, pretty much every single one, Patreon. And peer-to-peer cash allows that to happen, to not happen. So that's a huge difference that, I don't know, can Lightning Network do that?
Your right to transact was taken away from you?
Yeah, on all those platforms.
For talking openly about things?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that made it so I couldn't spend as much time doing it. It was a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people see a lot of content creators making a lot of money. And that can be done, but you have to a certain extent, play ball. And if you are really going down the rabbit holes and really saying what you thought, you got mass banned. Almost everybody did, who was, talking about Q mainly. It was I think what triggered a lot of stuff in 2020, but, vaccines, all kinds of stuff. That's why X is so unique. And I don't know what the payments are going to run on X. That'll be interesting to see. But without that trustless system to send money to people and sell, if you think about, for example, live streams, if you're live streaming to 1,000 people and it costs, let's say, 10 cents an hour per person, that's $100 an hour per person, whereas your ad revenue is not going to be anything near that. And yes, you can have people support you via Patreon, but that's hard to get people to sign up for $1 or $2 or $5 a month. If it's micropayments, it makes it much more smooth. There was a platform briefly on BSV. It never really went anywhere. I can't remember the name of it, but Daniel Krawitz and I had a podcast on there, and we never had more than, I think, 20 viewers at most. That might even be an extreme exaggeration. It might have been like 10 or 15. But the amount of money we made per viewer was in total quite small. But I think it cost 10 cents per podcast. But if you scale that up, and instead of 10 or 20 views, you get 1,000 views. It's $100 per podcast. It's not that hard to get 1,000 views on a video or podcast, and that can only be done on BSV as far as I know. So I'll leave it there.
Well, let me just jump in on the content creator side of it, because that I think is the big elephant in the room that people aren't aware of. The content creator industry did more just on one platform than the whole NBA last year. So, and when it comes to marketing, why I think that Bitcoin, whether it's BTC or BSV or the original protocol, doesn't really need marketing, because the content, if there's a protocol that content creators can make money on peer to peer, then the content creators are the biggest marketers, on the internet. And it's just a matter of, will that happen? Is there going to be a protocol where the content creators can get paid directly from their fans, where they don't have the intermediary withholding their money or banning their content, like it happened to you, Craig? Say, you can't say that to your fan. You're not allowed to say that. Well, that's my fan. He's paying me. I can say what I want to him, or do, he's supporting me, or they're supporting me. So if that is the big elephant in the room, I think if that's able to be unleashed, ultimately history is going to be made, and it doesn't really matter, all the semantics aside, if there's a demand for that, there's going to be
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'll just say one last thing real quick. And I think BSV is a proof of concept, the platforms we had that on, that it does work and people do want it. Because if you look at Twitch, people freaking love Twitch, and it failed for whatever reason. But there was some posts on Twitch that just from a 20-word post or 140 character post, whatever it is, would make 5 or 10 or 20, or I think there was one that made several BSV, and that's on a very small platform. So it's been proven on BSV that it's a great system. It feels totally different, and it's just a matter of getting out in front of people. So I really hope that Elon Musk is going to do that to Twitter, but we'll see.
Yeah, one thing that is coming that people may not be aware of is the stable coin, because when there's a stable coin for microtransactions, and then if there's a frictionless onboarding system, because most people don't want to be buying all this stuff and buying, it's just too complicated. We tried it the other day. It was like 45 minutes to onboard to a platform as a brand new, fresh person, KYC, and we're just buying like $1. Just wanted to buy $1, $2, and it was like 45 minutes, and even then it was another 48 hours. So if that is if that is solved, which if that is solved, where you could onboard in minutes or less and just buy $1 and not have to buy crypto. If you want to buy crypto, fine, but just get into the stable coin, okay, and then transact with your favorite creator or fan, back and forth. There's just there's a lot of things I think that are going to happen in 2025. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Craig, is you remember how the old post that I think Satoshi had shared it. There was posts with Craig Wright wearing that orange beard or the black face mask. Then I saw that same black face mask on a couple of YouTubers or Rumble people, and they were involved in. What is that black face mask thing?
You're talking about the white skull?
The white skull, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Punisher logo. I don't know where it originally comes from, but it's in a ton of the Q posts, and it kind of tends to be associated with pain. That is, pain for your enemies, pain for the evil side when they get eventually taken down. And Craig wore that shirt. I don't know when it was. It was sometime either during actually, I think I asked him, and he said it's sometime around the early Q posts. I don't know if it was after or before when it was. I think slightly after. But
what was the orange beard about?
I think that's meant to make fun of Greg Maxwell. is what I've gathered anyway.
I see. Okay, that's what it was. All right, that's I saw that same thing. So the Punisher logo.
Yeah, it's in a lot of Q posts.
All right, nice. Okay, anyone else want to jump up on stage and comment? Or let's see, we got Alex.Sats. Satoshi, you're still here?
Yeah, mate, I'm still here. Just been listening in the background.
Wow. Anything to add?
Well, just, obviously they're listening to all of this. Honestly, like Bitcoin is so simple. But I mean, I would like to ask G Money if he thinks like the jibby jabby is safe and effective. So if I told him the jibby jab was safe and effective, would he believe me? And if I created an old coin and just and just labeled it BTC, would he also believe it was BTC? It's all you've got to do is understand the fundamental basics of Bitcoin. It's all in the white paper. That's it. Like, Bitcoin is BSV, and all the deep state have done is subverted the protocol twice and made the ticker symbol change. That's it. That is it.
Yeah. I mean,
I think we lost G Money a while ago, guys, but
well, does anybody want to give me it's helpful to, I like having him on, like someone like him on here, because getting his perspective is very valuable, in my opinion, to seeing where things are coming from. Well, I guess a better question would be, is it your opinion here, guys, that he is actually totally compromised, and maybe that he's just being paid to say all that by those people? Is that what your opinion is? Or is it something that he actually believes is the best way to go?
He's looking at the hash rate, mate, because he doesn't actually understand what Bitcoin is. Like, he's going on about, it's got all this power, thinking that computing power somehow, but the computing power is just simply put into solving SHA-256 in order to win the block reward. That's it. That computing power will literally turn on a dime the moment the block fee surpasses the block reward, and the miners are just like, actually, we can economically sustain our mining operations from the block fee, because the block reward continues, because the block reward is a zero-sum game. It goes to zero, and there's nothing anyone can do about that.
Yeah. So can you take me down to, like, if I was 5 years old, and explain that to me again, where you're saying, let me just, I'll come at it from like his perspective, which is BTC. It has the biggest market cap, hash power is strong, therefore it's impenetrable, and the miners keep it safe and all this. So what are you saying? You're saying, can you take it very simple to me? How are you saying there's a risk to that with the mining, the hash power?
Well, yeah. So, the only thing hash rate does is try to solve find SHA-256 in order to win the block reward. That's it. It doesn't actually do anything other than that. Literally, that's all it is. And all the deep state Blockstream had to do was collude with the exchanges to list their alternative protocol as BTC, which would then take the market price with it, and the hash rate follows. That is it. But there is no utility on that alternative coin that they've created, because it can't do anything, because it's a centralized project. It has no value to anyone else because it's a securitized project. That SegWit token, that BTC token, what it is now, is a security. And therefore, it is limited by what those who control it want it to do. And they don't want it to do anything. And really, the utility, the value of the token comes from the usefulness of the network that it provides access to. And it's the block size that restricts the access to the network. Like, it was Satoshi Nakamoto himself saying, the Bitcoin network will be used for HD streaming. It's going to be used for everything that the internet is used for. And you can't have a limitation on its use because, people will just find another use that can sustain them. But, same for, he's just looking at it as a purely transactional network rather than a common digital network, which will replace the internet. That's it, because, the internet is completely controlled by the Silicon Valley cartel. Every time we upload digital content onto Google, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, they own and control it. Whereas we should own and control our own content. Even the likes of Zoom now, when we're using Zoom, they now say that, oh, by the way, we own all the content you create and we can listen to it and blah 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 blah. That's not private anymore. Yeah, we should be communicating with each other over a common digital network like we are now, but over a common digital network that is private, that nobody has no one has any control over. That's it. So in the future, we will be communicating just as we're doing now, but on the Bitcoin network rather than on the Twitter servers. That's it.
What about his point about everyone should own some BTC, just not to miss out? And
that's a bit like me. That's a bit like me saying, everybody should have a little bit of Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. Because his Ponzi scheme delivers 1% returns a month, and it has done for however long it went on for, 20 years. Everybody should have a little bit of Madoff.
Madoff coin.
I've never
exactly. It's ridiculous.
That argument of why they want to suppress BSV so much. They can make so much more if they were in BSV versus BTC, and it does what we're saying. Like, the gains would be exponentially more than what they have.
That's the point I don't understand. Let's say that you're a big influencer and you're in BTC, you're Michael Saylor, and all you care about is making money. Imagine if he told and he had no other ties, and he said, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and start selling all our BTC? We'll go buy that other coin, BSV, and we'll really capitalize. We'll buy it cheap, and then we'll start driving the price up, and then we'll sell BSV when it gets to whatever price. We'll make more.
I think it's the same reason people don't speak out when they, people with big followings don't speak out when they have information that they may know to be true, but they know it'll get them in a whole heap of trouble. I think that whether they have ties or not, which I think, a lot of them do have some ties, they know that if they say that, they're going to become a massive target, is my guess.
Yeah, and also, look at what happened to Gavin Andresen. He absolutely came out and said, look, I met Craig in London in 2010. He is Craig sounds like the guy that I've been communicating with. Both, even what's her name, Sarah Micklejohn, was trying to say, oh yeah, the signing was spoofed. Well, one, Craig has got that GIA certification. It literally makes him one of the top cybersecurity experts in the world. And then you've got Gavin Andresen, who is also extremely clued up on cybersecurity and stuff like that. You've got both these guys who are just like, yep, Craig's like, this is me. I'm the one that's been communicating with you. Gavin's just like, yep, do this, do that. Yep, spot on. And yet Gavin has still been coerced, and he's clearly been coerced, because he even said, look, I still stand by what I say, but, he might have bamboozled me. Well, what forces are making him say that? And then look at Andreas Antonopoulos, oh yeah, I wrote my book. And, the moment I said that Bitcoin was meant for buying coffee, I realized it was obsolete the moment I wrote it. So hold on a minute. So you wrote your book telling us that Bitcoin was meant for buying coffee, but then you suddenly realize that you made a mistake, and now he's, praising the virtues of some shitcoin that doesn't work, that you can't buy coffee with and can't do anything else with. There are some very, very influential, dark forces at work behind the scenes here.
Okay. New, I think I added a new speaker up there. So if you're up, I'm not sure if go ahead and open up. Anybody has any comments or questions, open forum. So did we add somebody new, Casey? No.
I thought so, but I'm not seeing.
Okay, they're not there. All right, no problem. John Wayne, how come he never comes into the spaces? I see that from John. What's this? John Wayne. Yeah, your point is well taken, Sir Joshi. Why maybe there's such a force behind it. But at the same time, if your motive is purely profit driven, I'm still at a loss, because at the end of the day, most of these companies only care about making money. And if the motive is profit driven and you could make more profit by buying something low and selling it high later, what am I missing? And I guess it's just you're saying that the forces behind it are so powerful that they're not willing to do that. Well, I would say that may apply to a lot of them, but there's only going to be, they're not all of them, because some people are just like, we don't care, we're going to go after the profit, forces or not.
But when they're talking about, the thing is, it's intellectual capacity. Like, so many people that honestly, they don't even know the difference between money and currency. If you don't know the difference between money and currency, you can't see past the fact that the US dollar has got no economic value. It's securities fraud, but everybody measures value in US dollar. It's the world reserve currency, and they cannot see it. And like I said, even Catherine Austin Fitts and Richard Werner cannot tell you the difference between money and currency. And, this lot, the deep state, have spent the last 100 years hoodwinking people, into believing that their securities fraud has value. But again, people don't understand the significance of the Nixon shock. Removing US dollar from the gold standard. So the certificates don't represent anything of value anymore.
So what dictionary or what source are you looking to when you're defining money versus currency?
Well, just basic economics. Basic economics. There's only those four things in an economy: goods, services, securities, and commodities. So currency and money have to come under one of those two headings, one of those four headings. So what are they? Well, a currency, gets its name derived from a circulating security, and money is a monopoly commodity. When a commodity, is used as a medium of exchange, and outcompetes everybody, and therefore becomes a monopoly commodity, then it's recognized as money. That's where the word comes from, monopoly commodity, and the amalgamation of those two words. Mon being the singular, Y being the commodity.
We haven't heard from anybody else in the audience. That if anybody else wants to chime up, we got BSV Panama, I see out there, Alex.Sats, Mr. Ben. Some people have talked about him before. I don't know if that's a actual profile or not, but we got Craig on stage. We got Scott. We haven't heard too much from you. You just chilling today over there in Wales. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm just cooking food at the minute, so I'm not really talking.
All
just
good.
Listening into everyone.
Casey had her new profile pic with Dr. Wright when he was visiting Arizona. It looks like Miss Casey Nicole, Dr. Wright, and you. Very nice picture. Requested.
Thank you.
Here we go. BSV Columbia. Adding up. So we will take you up on stage, and then we can start moving to close this down. But go ahead, BSV Columbia, added you up on stage. Love to hear your perspective. Whoop.
Okay, thanks. Just I want to give a short explanation of what is money and what is a currency. Currency is basically a token for a government, a token into a country. It's a security, a legal tender, but in fact it's a token. But money is more natural, adopted by many different countries and the people, as has been the gold and other commodities that have been adopted as money. Money is more global than a currency.
I see. So currency would be in the Bitcoin world, could be potentially BTC, I guess, a specific type of money, potentially.
Well, every single token, every single crypto token is a security. So therefore, yeah, it could be currency. But it's securities fraud because the tokens don't represent anything. So,
I see.
But
BTC BTC is not money because it's it doesn't. It's not a medium of exchange. It's basically a unit of account. It's just okay. It can't be used.
BTC is centrally controlled by Blockstream. They are the ones who issued it on the 1st of August 2017. So therefore it can't be common. So because it's issued, securities are issued. So BTC is issued by Blockstream, therefore it's a security. If it's being used as medium of exchange, it's currency.
So a better description would be BTC is currency, not money.
Well, yeah, but currency is meant to exchange the secured entitlement to the value, which is the money. But if you remove money from currency, then you have securities fraud.
Yeah. So BTC is currency, not money, because it's issued by like a central or controlled by a central origin, a central bank or a block stream, right? Official medium, it's officially now they're using it in El Salvador as a currency. Well, or they're talking about it.
Well, it's just a currency, like I said, is just simply a circulating security. So if people are using it as a medium of exchange in a closed economic area or private community, then it's currency.
Ah. Nice.
It's effectively what it is. It's fiat currency.
BSV Colombia, did you have a response to that?
Yes, that's enough.
All right. Nice. We had some new speakers on stage. Why don't we do a little in closing, I usually just like to go around to the stage and everybody do closing thoughts so we can wrap up. And why don't we'll go to let's start with old Craig Mason first, and then we'll go to Scott Satoshi Excelsior, BSV Columbia, then over to Casey, myself. So old Craig Mason, in closing thoughts.
Yeah, let's go. We are so back. BSV is Bitcoin. To say that Bitcoin is not a digital peer-to-peer electronic cash system is something straight out of 1984, and we're all going to make it. Nothing can stop what's coming. Thanks for having me.
Sounds like so. You and G Money have a colored history together. Do you think that he's acting in good faith?
I will say that in private he acts very differently, at least in the past, than in public. Maybe he's had a come to Jesus moment. I don't know, but he's on a network where he makes a lot of money. As far as I know, I don't know the inner details of their financials, but they make a lot of money from advertising, and he has never wanted to have a debate before. So the idea that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win comes to mind. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, no, thank you. No, I thought it was a good timing because we have so many similarities of things. This last little nuance of what is Bitcoin, I think, is the last part that is just not quite clear. Well, I mean, it's clear in your mind, Craig, but so you think he is acting in good faith, or perhaps he's just advertisers, I guess, behind him?
No, I don't know. I couldn't say. I don't. I think it could be either one.
Well, it's great that we kind of expand and hear somebody's perspective like that, and they're willing to come on and talk, because that's super important. And I hope that I did a good job in keeping it somewhat civil. Where everybody got to share their perspective, and because I mean the general public, can they hear that and be like, they want to hear both sides. I would. A lot of people are coming into this new. They weren't around in 2017, so. Oh, we lost Casey Nicole. Let's go over to you, Scott. Closing thoughts.
I'd just like to, remind people that a lot of people conflate the two things. They'll say Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, and a lot of the times, what they're saying about Bitcoin is true. It is this, it has many different facets to it for many different people, but you've always got to ask yourself, what Bitcoin are they talking about? Because if they're talking about BTC, it's a very different thing from BSV. And so don't let that get twisted, because it's easy to then be arguing about pointless things, It'd be like, well, Bitcoin does do that. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it's like, oh, well, that's what I'm saying. and then you're getting confused over what type real Bitcoin you're actually talking about. So don't let the misdirections and the silly sort of chasing your tails put you off, and just stick to what you know, read the white paper, and continue to see the utility being built on the BSV blockchain, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's why this passing off case is going to be so important. And it really comes down to something one is so simple, and that's just the naming rights. Like all the semantics and all the stuff, all just that just aside. Like, look, we have no problem and doing all these other side chains and different protocols and whatever they want to do. There's absolutely no objection to that. Just don't call, the objection is just don't call it Bitcoin, because Joe Sixpack wants to buy Bitcoin when he should be able to buy Bitcoin, not something else. I guess that's really what it comes down to. And the courts, man, are going to have a problem with that. I don't know. Let's see how this plays out. It's going to be a fascinating little over the next 2015. Excelsior, your first time we had you up on stage. Closing thoughts.
When it comes to BTCers, I'd say don't ascribe to malice, which could be explained by ignorance. That's not to say that there isn't malice out there, but I think the vast majority of people in the BTC community are acting out of ignorance of basic economics. And I think the messaging of BTC is similar to the messaging of socialism. It's very simple, straightforward messaging. It seems very reasonable that you want to keep the base layer small and distributed and secure, and you want large that kind of messaging makes a lot of sense, and that you want to scale in layers. It's a lot more difficult to say, to message like BSV, where we have to say, look, allow spontaneous order, allow the markets to determine block sizes. You have to trust the free market to get that right, to get the trade-off between medium of exchange and store of value right, that you have to allow the free market to determine the number of nodes, that you have to let the free market and spontaneous order determine the number of transactions per second, and everything's going to be okay. That's very difficult messaging. So I think ultimately the cap on BTC is going to have consequences. It's going to have negative consequences. It could lead to another BTC civil war, another hard fork. I think a lot of people will wake up when that time comes. I don't know when that will happen. I don't know if that'll be in our lifetimes or beyond. The timing of these things is very difficult. In the meantime, I'd say BSVers should leverage their protocol, should leverage their chain, which has, scalability. It has the ability to perform microtransactions, figure out ways to build businesses and create value, and try and attract people to BSV because they need BSV. Make it something that people want to use, that people need to use. And all this other stuff about which is the real Bitcoin, I think it's a bit of a sideshow. Just build and make useful products for customers, and they will come, and then you'll see adoption, and people will figure out what the real Bitcoin is, and they'll revisit the white paper, and hopefully they'll say, oh shit, we were duped by BTC, and we were duped by our own economic ignorance.
Nice. Very well said. BSV Columbia, closing thoughts.
I think we need to follow the modern definition of what is money. And money has it's like a triangle with three vertices. The first one is the unit of account. The second is total value. And the third one is medium of change. Both BTC and BSV are unit of accounts, but just BSV is a medium of exchange. And it's a liar that BTC is a stored value because with volatility of the market is not stable. Uh, we need very a higher price to be a store of value and don't have fluctuation in the price. Also, BSV right now is not a store of value, but will be in the future when everyone wants to use it. Everyone needs to use it for use on-chain application, and when that happens, Bitcoin will be converted as a commodity, and that's a central part to be money, be a information community.
The three
Commodity
parts were medium of account, medium of exchange, and what?
and stored value.
Store of value. And BTC is a medium of account and a store of value, but not a medium of exchange. Is that your point?
Yes, but it's not store of value as should be, because we had a lot of fluctuation in the price, and it's not stable. Only when something is stable could be at a store of value. But in this moment, any cryptocurrency has that property.
All right, so it sounds like it has the one element then, not the store of value. And why do you believe that BSV is a store of value?
Not now, but in the
not now.
future. In the future will be when thousands and thousands of millions of people use satoshis daily in dozens of transactions. That is like use oil today for mobility, for moving your car in a plane. We need oil for do that. We now in these modern times we need move information, and to move information securely into internet, we need a beacon, the original protocol. And when at that moment when we have millions of transactions every day, the price will be stable. I don't know at what level, but when the price will be stable using millions of transactions every day by millions of people, at that time we get that property into Bitcoin, the store of value.
Okay, so it sounds like once it's being utilized, you got the medium of account, medium of exchange, and then once it's being utilized at a large scale, that's when it becomes a medium or a store of value, the third element of money.
Yes, that's it.
I see. So in your opinion, it's got more likelihood of success in doing that than BTC, because BTC, it can't be a medium of exchange. They took that away. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's just because it's just not it's not like cash, clearly. So yeah, which I would agree. All right, nice. Well said. Okay, let's go over to Miss Casey Nicole, and then I'll give my closing thoughts.
I just want to say thanks to everyone. And I really, feel like American democracy needs proof of work. I think that's one of the only ways we're going to be able to restore power to we the people. And I'm grateful for everyone allowing me to learn more about the technical aspects of Bitcoin every week with you guys. But keep up the amazing work. And I think G Money would be great to have back, and really give him a visceral experience of using the power of micropayments, since he is a content creator. So I look forward to that, and you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Casey Nicole. And on that note, content creation is the is the big element here. I think that's going to make history. Content creation, content creators being the biggest marketers and making more than the NBA on one platform alone. And so just this in the last year. Now, my closing thoughts here on this is that, there's a lot of elements, okay, my natural position is sales. So I have to hold back so much because I'm a natural sales. That's just in my blood. Okay. So I could go into a sales pitch right now that will freaking make you guys cry, but I'm not going to do that because I want people to do their own research, and I don't really feel like it's the right time to start selling something in the way of, buy this, buy that, or what the best protocol is. But I will say that, there is some elements that people should be aware of. And that is one, the regulatory side, looking at the regulations that are built behind the network. It's clear that nChain has completely, patented this industry, and it's going to be really tough for that to be broken and changed. And of course you've got this open source protocol. You could use the original Bitcoin protocol, which is called BSV, and you get licensed to use those patents. They have a patent promise and guarantee. Now, if you're not, well, you're doing something outside of that, well, you could be running a risk at being in putting yourself in court. Now, it's not going to affect the everyday person, but it's going to affect businesses building on these other protocols that may not be in compliance, that may be stepping on intellectual property. That's the one thing. The other side is about back to the content creators and the idea of people just transacting with each other. There is, there's this big announcement that it seems to not be getting talked about too much, but that stablecoin money, it launched on ERC20. It's on the coin market cap, and it's being marketed out there with the ERC20 side of things as a legal protocol and working. But what's in the background is it being implemented with sats. It's being done. And so when you have a stable coin launched that's using sats, true micropayments, what's that? What sort of opportunity is that going to do? Now, it really is going to be about, well, not about the people who know about cryptocurrency, but I'm talking about the people who don't and are not in it now, by enabling a way for them to onboard, in micropayments, from fiat to micropayments seamlessly in seconds or minutes, or 1 or 2 clicks. If that is mastered, if that is actually, perfected, well, honestly, then the rest of this nuanced stuff is just moot. It doesn't matter, because people just want to get, they want to make something easy. They want to make it seamless. And, stable coins are one of those things. Like, people like stable coins. I mean, sometimes it's more stable, maybe not Tether, but others are really sometimes more stable than a lot of these fiat currencies. And a lot of people around the world, they love using stable coins at times, but it's just a matter of which ones are secure, and they're very expensive. Imagine if you had one on the sats, on the original Bitcoin protocol, that was operating in micropayments. I mean, that is just a big elephant in the room that seems to be, people heard about it, but I'm telling you, it's happening. It looks like it's happening. Now it's just a matter of, can it be adopted? Can people begin to onboard using that seamlessly without having to go through massive KYC and long-term processes and 2 days approval to get in? Well, if that's no, it has to be seamless. 2 clicks, you buy it, you're in. And now, when that happens, this is gonna. I mean, this is all. I think it's all going to take off. So that's kind of why I'm around. I mean, I see it happening, and I'm actually really involved in it. So we're going to have a lot more meetings today, about a couple hours, going into this in a lot more detail. So I'll share what I can on my YouTube channel as I'm talking about on these spaces, the things that aren't totally unallowed to be talked about, but. I do believe there's a lot of potential here right now. And so, yeah, closing thoughts, man. That was really great to have him on. Devolution is a phenomenal theory, and I do recommend everybody checking it out. And we'll see what happens with this election stuff. Bitcoin, or the democracy, American democracy being proof of stake, and Bitcoin solving this problem. The original Bitcoin solving this problem through proof of work. So, yeah, thank you, everybody. It was fun today. We do a fun little space, and let's do it again sometime. Thank you, Ms. Casey Nicole, for coming on. Craig Mason, thanks for being on stage, and Scott, Alex Favel, Bose, G Money, Satoshi hung in there for a 2.5-hour show. BSV Panama, all these people, and you guys in the audience, thanks for coming in and tuning in. We'll do it again sometime. All right. See you guys at the top.